We have a couple of new people we got.
Okay. So it's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. The only person I know that's not coming is Bill Durrance, who's got a conference he's attending for the county, and I think he was confused with what day the board meeting actually was when he signed up.
He would have city. He put a city.
Sure y'all didn't send him?
City, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we ain't sending him nowhere.
He's got the city.
Yeah, he's city. We ain't sending him nowhere.
All right, so with that in mind, let's call the meeting to order. Beverly, can you do the roll call?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Chairman French.
Here.
Mr. Broker.
Here.
Mr. Ellis.
Here.
Dr. O'Halloran.
Here.
Mr. Dorrance. Ms. Odell. Mr. Jones. Mr. Lutakis.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
Here.
Okay, the first agenda item is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of May 22nd. So can we get a first and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussions? Are we ready, Beverly?
That's gonna be confusing.
How are you?
I'm well.
What do you think?
Yes, I know.
This is our digital progress. Okay.
Oh,
So we are ready to vote. All in favor, click yes. Opposed, no. Abstain.
I'm only doing the first and the second. You should have loaded them out. There we go. Yours from Rochester? Yeah.
Okay, Beverly, we're in your hands. We're waiting on Frank according to my screen. Okay, motion carries. Next agenda item is the approval of minutes for June 6th, the special called meeting. Can we get a first and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussions? Then let's vote. Beverly. All in favor? Yes. All opposed? No. Okay, motion carries, so the minutes for these special called meetings are also approved. So we're going to move on now to the presentations, and I think we're going to switch the agenda to Jack. Have you go first, if that's possible?
That's good.
So let's welcome our good friend Jack Kingston, and hopefully he's going to bring us good news from Washington, D.C.
Everything out of Washington is good news these days, and everybody's happy and loving each other, and it's kind of a font of harmony, if you will.
I don't know about all that.
But I am glad to be here. How you doing, Jay?
Hey, Jay, how you doing, brother?
We have a presentation. Beverly, are you
Yes,
the
sir.
clicker? Good. And Brianna Foran is with me, and I think everyone knows Brianna. But first of all, let me just start out by saying it's a great honor to be part of the CAT team. I enjoyed it when I was in the state legislature. I enjoyed it when I was in the U.S. Congress, and I enjoy it now on the outside. And I've always had a lot of pride in our transit system, so it's just great to continue to be on the team, and we thank you for your business. The law firm in which I work, I think some of you are familiar, but Squire Patton Boggs is one of the largest in the world. It's, I think, number 8, 1,500 lawyers. We're all over, but we have a great transportation department headed by, among others, the former Secretary of Transportation, Rodney Slater. And so on your team, I am on the team. Carolina Medeiros, who Grant and Curtis work with on a regular basis, but she is a former alumnus of the DOT and worked at the Department of Transportation, I think, for something like 18 years, knows where all the grants are, knows the money. Rodney Slater, of course, was the Secretary of Transportation under Bill Clinton, and so the two of them together know where everything is in the department. Another part of your team is Patty Dortch. She actually is a lawyer along with Tim Drake, and they know the legal side of it. They get involved in the lobbying side as well, but they also know the legal stuff. And then Brianna Foran, who's public policy along with me. In terms of our relationship, and I'll speak as an elected official and somebody who has been accountable to taxpayers as you guys are, during the time in which we've represented you, we've been part of bringing in $4.4 million. And I'm always quick to say, if a team wins a football game, everybody had a good game. And so you can't say it was the quarterback who threw the pass or the wide receiver who scored the touchdown. It was the blocking and the tackling and everything along the way. So I don't want to say that, you know, we did this as part of your team working with you guys on a daily basis, particularly the professional staff. To highlight these, 2016, $1.6 million for the bus facility grant. We worked with DOT on it, the Federal Highway Administration. We secured meetings with the congressional delegation, got letters of support with them. And part of what we do, I want to point out, we work with all the delegation, Democrat and Republican. Many of you know that I'm a Republican, but I go to Democrat fundraisers, including Rosa DeLaura, who some of you may know is probably one of the most liberal members of Congress. She and I had lunch together on Friday. Ed Markey from Massachusetts, very, very liberal member. I went to lunch with him about 3 weeks ago, and Greg Meeks, who's New York City. The reason why I point that out is because, yes, there's a lot of food fights in Washington, D.C., but I can tell you from personal experience, friendships and relationships still trump it. So if you have friends on both sides of the aisle, you need to use them. Rodney Slater is a Democrat. I'm a Republican, but we can get the doors in open to anybody. And I think it's real important in today's atmosphere to do that. In fact, a little side note while I'm deviating, but you may have seen that Seth Rogen, who I'm really not that familiar with, but he's a comedian. Can I get a witness? I don't know how famous he is or isn't, but he was the topic of discussion at CNN this weekend, and I said he was wrong in not doing a photo with Paul Ryan, and he actually took exception with me and emailed me, and so I emailed him back and I said, can you imagine what good it would do to have a picture of you and Paul Ryan right now? And if you come to Washington, I'll introduce you to my Democrat and Republican friends because America needs it at the moment. But I just did a little bit of side preaching on that because I think it's important for us to know. Recently, just awarded was the ferry passenger grant, $2 million. Again, kind of the same drill, but you know what we do on a daily basis is look for opportunities, contact Grant, Curtis about it. Sometimes they spot it, sometimes we spot it, but we get the grant, the paperwork done, and then so you got to kind of recognize there's an opportunity, then you got to work for the opportunity, and we do that. In May, 2 years ago, $700,000 for a discretionary grant for the ferries. And then this was one that it's not counted in the $4.4 million. This was in addition to that. But Curtis recognized that the DOT was playing games on money that they owed you guys. It had to do with the bike share program and an account discrepancy. And CAT was having trouble getting that money. We got to work on it, contacted our friends in DOT, and got the $1.3 million transferred back to you. Other things that we worked on, there are some old earmarks. We don't have earmarks anymore in Congress, but there were some dormant earmarks that weren't being used. We went back and researched those to see if there were any opportunities there that, you know, they didn't use the bike path in Darien or Brunswick, Georgia. Could we get the money transferred? We found out we couldn't get the money transferred. You know, politically, nobody was going to let the money go. But those of you remember that Joe Murray Rivers worked his heart out, along with others, Priscilla Thomas and Helen Stone, for many years to get $10 million for this facilities. We were able to get it, but then there was discussion about where to put it, and CAT nearly lost that money. What we were trying to do is find out, well, were there some opportunities out there? We did not find any, but that's the kind of thing we do. On disaster relief, on Matthews and Irma, I know you're working that money now, and we just try to make sure, okay, are there opportunities because of evacuations and so forth? So right now, we're working on what we hope will become another success story, $2.7 million for low and no emission buses. That has been submitted, and then another one that will be a facilities grant, and we'll be submitting that in August. So what we try to do is have a lot of at-bats, but have intelligent at-bats. It doesn't do you any good with DOT to just always be there just hoping on something to happen. You got to kind of move it intelligently. So what our goal is to always have something that we just did and something that we're about to do. So with that, that's my presentation, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And Brianna, have I forgotten anything? I want to make sure.
I would just say that a good way to think of us is as an extension of your professional staff. You know, Grant and Curtis and the rest of them are really good, and with our relationship with the DOT and Carolina's experience and Patty's experience working there, they know what DOT is looking for. So we work with your staff and build the story and give them the story. So that's where we come in and help them.
Yeah. Jack, let me ask you just a question, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with what we're doing here, but in a larger sense it does. And many of us read in the Times this weekend about the Koch brothers funding, you know, some activity to stop the expansion of transit.
Nashville, I think.
Yeah. And is that, I mean, are we looking at a new front opening up, you know, among people of that mindset, you know, to sort of battle, you know, mass transit, or do you have any sense on that?
I think we are. I think that there are people who see opportunities to make a buck on the other side, and traffic snarls are good for them, and I think that is something we have to be mindful of, because I think Nashville passed a special ops and sales tax, and it's a pretty big multi-million-dollar funding program over several years, and you know, they decided to inject themselves into the local politics. So.
Right. It doesn't have legs, you know, in Congress, that thinking?
I don't know if it does so much in Congress as much as it does locally in Nashville or other places where they can go and stir the pot and do grassroots referendum and you know, stir up the population against something. And so yeah, I don't think it's so much that they're working the halls of Congress, but they are working the people back home in cities who can raise cane with their elected officials.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we're trying, that's what we're trying to do right now, Chester. So until she gets this to work, Chester's next. I'll keep the shot clock on my watch.
Is it okay for us to take the PowerPoint down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can give you the give that to you also if anybody wants a copy of it. Yes.
Yeah, what I want to find out from, and I want to talk about I mean, hearing the history is good. You should know where you stand. But I want to talk about going forward.
Yes.
Upcoming, I think the deadline is August the 6th.
Mhm.
There's 366 point some odd million
Yes.
in transportation.
Yes.
All right. What do we need to do right now so that we can't wait until our next board meeting, which is July or whatever the date is, at the end of July, to approve something that has to go before transit to get approved? So how do we push the accelerator at this point to make sure that we get our grant requests and things in place? Because we need to get some of that 366 million.
And I agree with you. I think what you're doing right now is making sure that we are working on it is the right thing to do. Breathe down our neck. I'm happy to give you my cell phone if anybody ever wants to call me to make sure we're doing it. We have one submitted right now that was just submitted last week, and then the August 6th deadline, we are submitting another grant. So, you know, I tell you one thing that's kind of interesting. Something like 25% of all the money goes to California.
Right.
And so if we don't get out there and get aggressive, then we let the opportunities. But we have a ticket to the dance, and we plan to be on the floor.
Okay, so do you have our application? Have we
Yes.
completed the application work?
I don't think it's
No,
quite
we still need
completed,
to work.
but
It's in progress.
it's in progress.
Where are we? What's the status? Don't tell me we working on it. Tell me what the status. What do we need to have done? See, because I'm understanding this. Understand me good. If the deadline is August the 6th, we don't need to be coming at the July board meeting to get approval for something that needs to be done now, so that you've got more than just 5-6 days to work on it. You understand what I'm saying? You need approval from this board now, right? Grant, you writing the grant? You working with the grant? You and Curtis? All right. So what's the status? Where are we? What do we don't have in place that we need in place?
What's the hold up?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a hold
So when the notice of funding is released, we usually get 30 to 60 days to respond. And when you go to the board, we don't just go to the board and say we're going to apply for this grant. We have to tell you what the grant is for, how we're going to pay our local match, which could vary from 20 to 50%, where we coming up with that money, and how it affects our overall capital investment. FTA is very keen on, especially lately, to the TAM plan, Transit Asset Management Plan, which means they want us to follow it. And so to just throw a project out there and then say we're going to have match, we have to make sure that we provide the board with accurate information and something that makes sense and something that is following our TAM plan. And to put all that together isn't always something that can happen over a week or two. But keep in mind, this was just announced a couple weeks ago, so it's not like this has been on the table for 6 months and we've been sitting on it. Once something's released, we have a meeting, we decide, okay, what is our project priorities, does it line up with our TAM plan, and where are we getting SPLOST match, or is it our match, who's matching the money? Because typically 20% match is what was required. But nowadays, the federal government wants to see 30, 40, 50% match. And so if you just put 20% match in, and Jack, correct me if we're wrong, you may not be looked at very well compared to the people putting in 50% match, especially under the new administration. They want more local support. So we have to figure out how we're coming up with that money. But to just come to the board without that accurate data and information is reckless. We don't just need approval to apply for it. We need to have all the project information and how we're going to pay for it to the board before it gets approval. And that's something that isn't thrown together just in a couple of weeks. To answer your question, what if the timing of the grant falls in such a way that it gives us very little time once our board meetings line up? Well, there's two options. One option is we can have a special call board meeting to give us time. The other option is you could give us a blanket approval for the grant, and whatever the project that lines up with what we need, we can go do it that way. But there's really no other mechanism. And Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, is there another mechanism we can do?
Not really. The competitive and the other grants that are outside of our annual apportionment, you usually
Yeah, we're
give
talking about
about
competitive
30
grants.
to 60 days
Right.
between notification and submission.
So the board could say, you know what, for the next 3 competitive grants, you guys go for it. You could say that. Agencies do that. Or you can wait till we provide you with the exact data of the project, how we're funding it, everything like that. We can do that too.
So we don't have 30 days. All right, our next board meeting in July is either gonna be the 24th or the 31st.
24th.
24th.
Which
The
gives us 2
deadline is the 6th.
Correct. So
See,
2 weeks.
No, I'm putting this out for the board members who need to understand where we coming from. All right. If we don't move forward now, there's no way that we wait till the 24th and come up with something, approve it, and get their input, your input, and get it to the feds in time for it to be approved. See, so what I'm saying to us now is, where we after you got the announcement, last week before, all right. What steps have we taken to put it in place, and then what steps do we need to put it in place? Because as I see things, we need to have a special call board meeting somewhere around the 10th or the 17th to get this stuff in place so that we can have time to straighten out any tweaks we need to do. And I don't like to use the word tweak because you know how that goes. But there's got to be time between what we're doing, what they're doing, and when submission is to tweak so that we can get it right. All right, because I understand the last time we didn't get the grant, right? See, so this time we need to be more aggressive in pursuing, because one of the things I'm looking at is in that 366 million might be that 3 million we need to get rid of Indra. And if any Indra folks in here, sorry if I offend you, but we need to get rid of.
They're on Spain, no problem.
All right, okay. Well, I'm just letting you see, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get us to be more progressive going after this, because if we don't get progressive, rather than getting the majority of California, may get the whole thing. Just like we weren't aggressive in our last legislative session, and Metro up there in Atlanta got them.
That's the state metro.
Yeah, the state. I know, but I'm saying we weren't aggressive enough until the majority of the money stayed north of us and didn't come this way. So I want us to be progressive, because if there's $366 million out there, we ought to get some piece of the pie.
Well, I think the two questions that have to be asked is this grant that's due on the 6th of August, what are we going to apply for?
That's what we need
That's
to come
the
up with.
first question.
We need to look at, yes,
So I
priorities.
mean, I'm reluctant to just say today, okay, here's a blanket authority to apply a grant. I agree we need to figure out quickly what we're doing, and we need to have a called board meeting if necessary. I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah.
But
Even
the first
next
thing we
week if
need to
have
do is we need to know what we're going to ask for. And
Right, and so the last one that we didn't get, when we did our debrief with FTA, part of the reason why we didn't get that grant is because the year before we had won, and we got those paratransit vehicles. So it's not typical that people are awarded the same grant 2 years in a row. That was one of the feedback we got. It really didn't have anything to do with being aggressive or not. It just, they awarded us $2.some million, and now we have to wait our turn. But I agree, when we're ready to go, we can have a special call board meeting so that everybody can do their job with an appropriate timeline.
Well, my comment to that is, I'm gonna give you my grandmama's philosophy. All right, if your name ain't in the hat, it can't come out. I don't care. Every time there's a grant that we can use, our name ought to be in the hat, whether it come out or not.
It is.
So what I want us to do is I want us to put all the bolts and knots and things in place so that we can get the application in on time. Then his firm can go to work for us with their connection. But if it's not there, there's no need in them going to work. So I'm trying to get us to move forward.
Absolutely.
What do we need to do?
The only difference, if I can just interject, the only difference when we wouldn't apply for a grant is when we don't have enough money to local match it. So if we've utilized all our SPLOST on grants and there's no new SPLOST money, we need to come up with a match. So if we're applying for $4 million, $5 million, we need to have at least 20% of that. So that would be the only reason why we wouldn't apply for a grant. If we don't have the match, you can't apply.
So is that the case here?
Jay's had his hand up now for some time. I think it's time to recognize Jay, and Chester will come back to you.
my point. Question is, how long we've known about this grant?
It just came off the board a week maybe.
A week? And when you say a week, 7 days, 8 days, 10 days, I mean,
I don't know, roughly.
when did we get the grant? Give me a specific date, then. How about I say that way?
I don't know when it was announced by the Fed. It was some point last week.
I got knowledge of it last Wednesday.
Okay, so what we're saying is it was not enough time to do a presentation for us to be able to make a conversation about it today.
Right.
So now we gotta interrupt everybody's schedule to bring another call meeting for us to have this opportunity to discuss it again. And my thing is we have to be more thorough as far as our time is concerned. Because me coming downtown for call meetings and all other stuff like that, I don't have a problem doing it. But my thing is, if we knew about it last week and this was pressing, and we wanted to make sure that they did what they had to do as far as their job is concerned, we should have put some effort and time into this. So today, it could have been presented. So today, we could have voted on it. Because it shouldn't have took this much time to actually do the whole process. So,
Bill?
Well, let's back up a little bit. I mean, have we ever not submitted a grant on time?
No.
Because of the process that we currently use?
We've never been late for a grant. And as
yeah,
far as
this grant.
I know.
But this grant is due July the 6th.
August 6th.
August 6th. Well, we got time then, so we
We
don't
got
have to have a
plenty of
call
time.
meeting.
I mean, it's.
That's fine. I rescind my whole statement.
I mean, I think that.
But I don't think we need a call meeting to discuss this stuff, man. I think
I
we
mean,
need to move forward and make this thing happen.
I would like to suggest maybe by the committee meetings, which are July 10th, that you have this laid out as to what we want to apply for. And to give us assurance that Jack's got it, is working on it, and it's in motion. I mean, that I think would be a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. But we would have had to have it completely prepared and finalized and put in the board packet by Friday if we were going to do it for this board meeting. And that's not reasonable considering these don't come up every month. So this is a big shot here. We got to do it right. We got to make sure we have the money.
All due respect, me getting the board packet on Friday is not reasonable to me either, but I still deal with the time frame. You asked me to make it, you give me a board packet on Friday. Saturday and Sunday, my weekend. Monday's my only day I really got to look at it. That's not a reasonable time
Okay,
for me to look at the board packet.
we're drifting off.
No.
There's nothing in here about board packets.
Point of order. He said he didn't have time. I don't have time, but I make time to make sure I read this thing. So don't make excuses. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's not an excuse.
All right.
If you want us to put accurate information, we're spending millions of dollars of taxpayer money to match a grant for a project that matters and is of priority and falls under FTA regulations as far as our TAN plan. We can't come up with that, finalize it, confer with our lobbyists, and put our whole story together in 2 days and prepare it for the board packet.
But you asked me to do the same thing with a board packet.
I don't think it's apples and oranges.
It's grapes and strawberries. I don't care what fruit it is.
It's still
but
fruit.
I have to make sure I have this. No.
We're gonna cut it
Point of
down.
order. Point of order.
Are we out of order?
Point of order.
Absolutely out of order.
Point of order. You cannot state that you don't have time and then you put us in a time restraint, but we make sure we make time to make it happen. We're a business. If this is a decision we need to make, we need to go ahead and speed up our time frame and make decisions happen.
Okay, but the point of the agenda is grants and the presentation in our federal legislation. It's not a time to discuss the board packet. We can bring that up later.
It's not a point
And
about the board
we've
packet.
got today, we've got a big agenda, we've got to stay on this agenda, or we're gonna be here till dinner.
It's not about the board packet. He expressed it. He didn't have time to do what he did. I gave an example. I don't have time to do what I do, but I still make time. So you cannot take away that from me.
You've heard it, you've stated
Okay,
it, it's on the
thank you.
public record, nobody's taking away from you. It is time to move on.
I appreciate
But
it.
we're gonna be here till lunchtime and after, and then if people are gonna start to walk out, we've gotta stay on these agendas. We're not gonna
I'm
make
staying
it.
on the agenda.
Any more questions for Jack?
Let me give y'all my cell number too, because anybody can call
Absolutely.
me anytime,
Thank you.
and I'll be glad to, if I can't get the answer, generally speaking, I can find the answer, so.
Appreciate it, Jack.
Yep, good to see you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Curtis. Chester. Thank you, Jack. Couldn't read.
Thank you, Jack.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack.
Good to see you guys.
Hey, Jack, thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
And we are confident that you're going to pull this off and we're going to get a very successful season.
Well, I do want to emphasize, I know
No
what it's
pressure.
like to be accountable to the taxpayers, and we're all in that boat, and so if I can't look you in the eye and say, here's how we added to the bottom line, then I'm not doing my job, so. But it's an honor to work with you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for all your help.
I've been knowing Jack for many years from the different governmental things he's been involved in. And he's an individual that works really hard and does a great representation for the people in our community and even around the country when you see he's on board for things that really need to be accomplished. So I have to say that, but Jack, and he's with a great firm, but he is doing a good job and has for us and our community and all. So I want to thank you, Jack, for that.
Well, thank you for that. Y'all take care.
Okay, the next presentation is again on insurance. So you guys ready?
Yes, Jack will be a little difficult to follow. He's on the revenue side. And
How you doing again?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
And we're more on the expense side, but we'll go through to talk about the insurance renewal first.
So would you like us to hold our questions till the end? Would that be easier for you?
Either way, if you have a question that you want answered, just interrupt, or you can hold it to the end.
Let's try to hold it till the end. I think that might be easier because sometimes the questions get answered in the next page.
Okay, that sounds good.
It
I'll
should
take
be up.
just a moment to introduce myself and our firm, and then we'll go forward. I'm Cindy Robinette, and I'm a partner in Sterling Seacrest Partners, your insurance brokerage and consulting firm. My colleague, Jenny Osako, is also a partner, and the two of us work together to handle the property and casualty insurance needs of Chatham Area Transit. For those of you that have seen this in here before, you'll notice some different colors and a little bit different name. Sterling Seacrest, formerly known as Seacrest Partners. Last July, we had the opportunity to merge with another privately owned insurance brokerage firm out of Atlanta, Sterling Risk Advisors. So we're the same people, but a larger firm, the largest private broker in Georgia and the 78th largest broker in the United States. So we are pleased to have the opportunity to work with you all. What we're going to present today is the renewal July 1 of the insurance programs. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Do you have her cut out of the clicker?
Let's see.
Shouldn't.
Am I pressing the wrong button? Would be the next one. Center button.
Someone's clicking, so it's.
And suggestions.
Hit the button.
I'm probably doing something wrong.
That's it.
Oh. And do I point it to, doesn't matter? Okay.
I would point it there just to be safe.
Okay. There we go. All right, I'll start just briefly giving a background on the property casualty market. I'll try to be quick. But over the last 10 years, we've had a relatively soft and then stable market, buyer's market. I will say we're starting to see some of the winds of change in the insurance marketplace. The last 2 years, we've had significant catastrophic losses, mostly in the property side, with the hurricanes, the wildfires, earthquakes, and some of that is bleeding over into the casualty side. So we're starting to see some rising rate pressures. And you'll see, on this overview on the coastal property side, we're seeing rate increases as much as 20%. Auto liability is another area, and a big exposure for you guys, obviously. The losses in that line of coverage with distracted driving. And then also even from the catastrophes, I think over 1 million autos were damaged in Hurricane Matthew. We're seeing some price pressures in those lines. I will tell you that your renewal, CAP's renewal, is much better than what we're seeing overall in the marketplace, so don't panic at these numbers. Just to let you know, we really have to battle it out with these carriers and broadly touch the marketplace to make sure that we're giving you guys the best deals out there. Continued consolidation as well, which strengthens competition. Those are some of the things that we are facing. Come on.
I hear it.
Don't see it.
Can I do it from the screen?
Sorry, I don't know why it's not working. Jenny, if you want to advance it from the screen and we can kind of go through it that way.
You have to see if it's on the screen.
I know the next slide, I believe, is your premium. Renewal premium.
That's why it's not showing.
That's right, it's a little scared.
Okay, I got you.
All right. It worked that time, so. Jenny's got it over there. Thank you. It was making a noise, it just wasn't.
We hear it.
My apologies. Interesting. So all of these numbers should be in your board packets. If you can't read them, I apologize. Sometimes difficult to see up on the screen, but it should be in front of you as well. This just gives you a snapshot so you can see, you know, what was paid last year and then what the renewal premiums are. And then we're going to go down line by line to give you the background and the efforts we went into for each of those. The property program did go up 5%. That's pure rate increase. The exposures remain the same. We don't like any increases, but given where the market is and some of the claims activity, yeah, that's a reasonable result for you all. General liability, including employee benefits, went up just slightly, but just a small bit of that was rate. The rest was increase in employee count and revenue budgets, how the general liability is rated. On the business automobile side, these numbers are a little bit hard to compare. When we get to the commercial auto slides, we'll show you the rates because the units have changed so much. So paid in to date was around $817,000. The renewal premium $901. You can't really compare those apples to apples because we added about 33 different units from May through June, but we've also taken some off. And we don't have full annual premiums in, so difficult to prepare the premium, but basically about a 3.4% rate increase overall. So a good result, even though, again, we don't like increases. Public officials liability and employment practices liability. Again, just a slight increase in the employee count and the revenue budget causing that slight increase. Workers' compensation, we have a great story to tell there. The rate actually went down slightly for the fixed costs. You did have a 9% payroll increase. The claims experience is phenomenal, and that's a testament to what Chatham Area Transit is doing in safety and risk prevention. So we'll get to some of those slides. All in all, the premiums that we're recommending from the expiring to renewal program, just over $1.2 million and within the budget expectations of Chatham Area Transit. There are a couple of additional coverages that we'll talk about at the end. All right. Going through to the property insurance, again, we did an extensive marketing process. It went to about 15 different insurance companies, and you'll see all the carriers that we went to on the bottom. Because of the coastal exposure and the type of construction, not every standard carrier out there will give us quotes. So we went throughout the global marketplace to get options, and at the end of the day, the carrier that was currently writing the property coverage that has written it for several years, Axis, came back with the best proposal at a 5% rate increase. So you'll notice your values there at $26.4 million. There was no change there. We still have $5 million in coverage for flood and earthquake, and the premium up just 5%. A couple things to notice, just so that you were aware, as we come into hurricane season, we, like other risk in Chatham County, have a percentage deductible for named storm, a 1% named storm deductible, 1% of the total insured value. So if there's a big storm, there's going to be a larger deductible than if you had a fire. Fire deductible is $5,000. a named storm is 1% of those. Moving on, this is just to show you the different insurance companies we went to for your commercial auto and general liability. You may recall, if you've been on the board for a while, we've been handicapped to some extent in order to get competitive quotes because they require at least 5 years of historical loss information. We are at that point, and we were able to canvass the markets and had a number of insurance companies interested. The top 3, RLI, National Interstate, and Lancer, all came and did on-site inspections and meetings and looked at the programs and policies and offered quotations. RLI, which is the incumbent, is who we're recommending, provided the best offer with a 3.4% rate increase. Though we will talk about some of the options from National Interstate. They were competitive, but they quoted a higher deductible with a little bit higher collateral requirements. So from a variability standpoint, those options had a bit more risk than what we have with RLI. And then Lancer was just a touch higher than National Interstate and RLI, so we didn't include all of their options in the formal presentation, but at least we had some solid proposals on the table. And some of the other carriers you see here either declined or just flatly couldn't compete with price. So this is where it may be difficult to see. And these numbers will be a little bit different from the first slide we showed on 2017 because we are trying to show the number of units we have and then a rate comparison. So last year's units were different than this year's units. So if we take the units we have for the fixed route, the paratransit vans, and the PPT is private passenger, and apply that against the rates, you'll see the premium for 2017 versus 18. The auto liability is in the middle. You see that's a fairly decent jump in pricing, but there was a slight rate decrease on the physical damage side, so that brings everything back in line. I want to comment quickly on the physical damage because CAT does not purchase traditional comprehensive and collision coverage on all the buses because many of them are because they're fixed by Chatham Area Transit. But in the event of a catastrophe, such as a major flood, hurricane, fire, explosion, there is coverage in place for a catastrophe loss, and there's a total of 11 million. You see it under specified perils. You've got a 1 million primary and a 10 million excess limit. Then that would cover your overall fleet, but your values are close to 30 million. So it doesn't cover everything. You can buy up, but it's expensive. And just to give you an example of the cost, for the 1 million, you're paying almost 100,000, and then the excess, because that's where they expect most of your risk to be in the first million. The 10 million excess is another 100,000. Now that went down from last year, but it's still a very large portion of the premium is the catastrophe coverage. So we have some options there. If you were to take flood out of that mix, then that would drop the premium drastically, but I don't think you want to do that because the risk of flood is certainly out there. So that's where we compare 901 to 872, again about a 3.4% rate increase. Next slide. Okay, so these are, I'm sorry, did I advance you too quick?
This is the RLI option.
Yeah, these were the RLI options. So right now, or historically, CAT has purchased a program with a $25,000 each accident deductible. So RLI has quoted that same deductible, and that's what you see in the middle column. There is an option for a fully insured program, which would mean that there would be no deductible at all. The difference you'll see in this middle row is the projected deductible losses. Over the last 5 years, average losses have been about $230,000. So if you continue with that, the fully insured option is going to be just a little bit higher. Now, I think there's some desire to have known cost, so that could be attractive, something to look at. But the deductible option still produces a lower cost, or projected to produce a lower cost based on your loss history. The next slide, or just so you'll see the options from National Interstate. They did provide options for a double the deductible at $50,000 and then $100,000. And we've included in this analysis the premium as well as projected deductible losses. And then they also offered a fully insured program. Their fully insured program was much higher than RLI. The one program that is less expensive than what we're going forward with on the, recommending you go forward with an RLI is $100,000 deductible. But again, there's no certainty that the losses projected under the $100,000 are going to be your actual losses. So there's more variability under that program. And then also you'll notice on the physical damage, the bottom half of this, their pricing is much better than what we've shown you from RLI, but flood is not included in those numbers. So you could get the same thing from RLI if you take the flood coverage out, or similar premiums. All right.
So are you recommending to get a separate flood policy?
No, I'm recommending that you keep the flood coverage in the program as you currently have it. But it does cost money. So,
but it's flood, and
exactly,
we live in a flood city.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So the risk is high. I would keep the coverage.
Mm-hmm.
We like to break it down so you see what's driving the cost. These are just a snapshot of your losses, just to kind of give you an idea of what we've seen. They're undeveloped, which means many of the losses are still open. But again, you're only exposed at $25,000 of that deductible. So overall claims experience is pretty good. We've only had one really large loss in the last 5 years. Next. Workers' compensation. Amerisure is the insurance company that writes a large deductible program. We've gone to a number of other carriers to get quotes as well. CAT has a deductible of $300,000 per accident and $650,000 maximum deductible for the year. What you see across the top row is the fixed premium. So for this deductible program, 2017 the premium was just under $210, and even with a 9% payroll increase, you're up to $227. You could get a slight rate reduction, but that's payroll driven. A National Interstate offered an option with a slightly lower deductible, but a higher premium and a much higher collateral requirement. So we're still recommending staying with Amerisure. But I want to point out the premium is only a portion of what you're paying here. The next slide will tell the best story, because the claims portion that's paid within the first $300,000 is where your real cost is going to come out of. And for a transportation account, this type of claim record is phenomenal. It's best in class. There's only 1 year that has any open claims, and that's the current year. And you look at how the claims costs have gone down. That's pure from preventing accidents, managing claims. We, as your insurance broker, have very little to do that. That's the team here. So that is something to be very, very proud of, because that's where you have the real savings. Overview of the programs. This is nothing new. It's a busy slide. This just recaptures all that we have presented thus far. We didn't have specific slides on the public officials because there wasn't anything that was better than what we had proposed in the past. So, next. All right, so those are the programs that you currently purchase. There are a couple of areas of exposure which we've wanted to discuss and that's under consideration for this renewal. You probably can't open a newspaper without seeing some type of privacy breach or electronic extortion. So we have secured privacy, security, liability quotations that would cover privacy breach. It would cover cyber crime, extortion, systems damage, business interruption. 3 different options. The first option in each of these categories has $1 million limit with a $10,000 deductible. But we've also gotten indications for raising that to $3 million or $5 million, because any breach you see out there is likely to be over $1 million. The premium for this coverage is $7,200 per year. Moving it up to a 3 million limit would be 12,000, and then 5 million would be 16,000. We showed 4% tax because that's surplus lines tax that's payable for insurance, for the insurance coverage to the state. So we would recommend that you consider this coverage, and you have the options there. The other coverage that we've talked about in the past and have presented is crime employee dishonesty coverage for a $500,000 limit with a $5,000 retention. You'll see the premium indication there. Now, if that's something that you wish to move forward with, we just need a finalized, application, and we can put that in place very quickly. Next, other coverage considerations, and we talk about these each year. You buy $1 million limit, but there are additional limits available. Should you choose to purchase additional limits to go over the auto, general liability, and the employer's liability portion. There's also increasing interest and concern regarding terrorism and violent malicious acts and the economic damages that can come out of those. So there are numerous products on the insurance market that would provide coverage for economic loss associated with a terrorist act or an active shooter. Something to consider. Environmental impairment liability, no current insurance is in place for pollution cleanup or third-party liability for environmental risk.
How come?
Pardon?
Why?
The decision just has not been made to purchase the coverage. But all these are available should you want to pursue them. Now, time for your questions.
Jay's first, because can we get this thing to work on the speaker cue somehow?
Yeah, sure. No.
So Jay, while they're working, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I have 5 questions.
Okay.
Quick, brief, they're pretty yes, no. $10 million, will that cover the critical fleet if incidents arise? That, I guess, would be staff question. It's like the second, third slide.
Right.
And it was like $10 million was what we actually applied for as far as coverage is concerned.
Yeah, it's actually 11 million total.
Okay, 11 million. Is that enough to what we call cover critical fleet?
Terry, you have the book value?
Yes, so the book value of all our assets, including the buildings, is at 42 million. The way that hierarchy works is that either FEMA would reimburse us for our casualty loss, including the fleet and the property, or FTA would implement the ER recovery program, the emergency recovery program, and then this 11 million would supplement what the FEMA and the emergency recovery would pay. So we're looking at covering 15% of that, which is right at 8, and
Yes.
so the 11 is sufficient for a declared disaster. If there is a fire and we're totally wiped out, then we would have 11 million toward rebuilding.
And 11 million is just for the fleet, not for the property.
Right.
That's why I was
Right.
about fleet.
Yeah, so but the FEMA and the FTA is for comprehensive reimbursement for loss. So the first place we would go would be FTA if they implemented their program, then FEMA, and then this coverage would supplement the reimbursement, which is between 75 and 85%.
And what would be the time frame as far as FEMA reimbursement is concerned?
If it's a critical operation sensitive reimbursement, they will reimburse you and then you go through the grant application process. So if we needed that money to buy the fleet, there are mechanisms to get it faster. But if you go through the process, it could be 6 to 8 months. For Matthew and for Irma, we were expecting the 100 to 120 that we were getting back in a 6 to 8 month time frame, which is pretty standard.
The insurance would come quicker.
Yes.
And what is our current deductible?
For the physical damage?
50, 100, and something else.
Yeah.
I think it's.
I gotta pull that. Should have it off the top of my head.
Was that?
I think you're asking about the fleet, not the
Yes,
property.
ma'am. I could ask questions here, but I was.
25,000 deductible.
All right. And the recommendation was 100,000.
The 25,000 is for the liability.
10,000.
And the 10,000 is for the physical damage. The recommendation is to keep your $25,000 deductible on the liability and to keep your $10,000 deductible on the physical damage.
It was something that you had said, I mean, maybe it's the third or fourth slide, but it's something you said it was a $50,000 deductible, $100,000 deductible, and then
Fully insured.
Fully insured.
Those were options from a different insurance company,
Okay.
National Interstate, and they're competitive, but there's a concern if you go from a $25,000 each loss deductible to 50 or 100 of that variability in cost because you're taking on more risk. So our recommendations was to stay with the 25,000, and that insurance company that offered the other three didn't offer a $25,000 deductible.
okay. And the buses, where we store the buses at, is that considered a flood zone, or what's a flood rating as far as the area where you have the buses at the other location?
It's not considered a flood zone.
So it's not considered a flood zone everywhere.
Not a Cat Central.
And that's what so where will we have consideration as far as being under flood zone insurance?
Even
I'm just asking.
Even if it's not in a flood zone, it doesn't mean that it can't flood.
I got you.
Yeah. So there's still that risk. But the other thing is too, if there's a hurricane, a lot of the buses are going out of town too.
I got you.
To evacuate. Correct.
So it's still covered if if the flood is not, if it's driven through a flood, it's still covered?
Yes.
I got you. And my last question, how do you see our insurance coverage changing with us bringing paratransit in-house?
The only changing from the extent that you will be paying premium on those paratransit buses.
Additional workman's comp and additional employees.
Well, that's right.
And then the other piece, I guess.
And the impact on the workers' comp will be minimal because of the deductible program. So, you've got claim exposure, but y'all are doing really, really, really well there. So
Yeah, but
keep on keeping on.
Well, my follow-up question that is, if Yellow Cab had issues as far as insurance or whatever the case may be, I don't foresee those issues just floating away. How would we actually, and this may not a question for you, I'm gonna use Commissioner Ellis's conversation. Maybe this is a question I need to have with staff.
The risk that their insurance company required them to pull out or asked them to pull out that they wouldn't cover was risk in that line of business. They didn't want, it's already the highest risk line of business they're in. They didn't want the risk of performing the job. Their insurance company, not Yellow Cab, their insurance company.
All right, so we'll be fine as far as when we take paratransit in-house.
Well, we already have paratransit in-house, so to speak. We have several vehicles already, and they've been covering that. This will be additional.
Well, we have paratransit in-house, but now we talk about the stress of all paratransit will be in our hands.
Right, but the risk itself, we've already been insured on that.
Yeah, the underwriter is comfortable with it, and they're comfortable with the way you guys handle it, the way you handle risk management. So just getting it a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
It's not a concern.
and the other issue with Yellow Cab is indemnification. They didn't want to our clause in our contract says that they indemnify us if they get in an accident. They didn't want to do that. They wanted us to be responsible.
And our insurer didn't want to insure Yellow Cab. So you bringing it in is much better from their perspective. Thank you for those questions.
No problem.
Very good.
Jay, you finished?
I'll answer any other thing after everybody else talks.
Can you start the shot clock? There we go. Chester.
Let's talk about the other recommendation as far as where we expose.
Okay.
You made recommendations and things we consider. How much exposure is there?
On a cyber privacy security, privacy breach side, I would say tremendous. I think every organization has exposure there. And taking personal financial information or even having some type of hack into your system that shuts down your system and causes massive disruption and expense. I think the possibilities are certainly there, and it's often not a matter of if but when, and then how you manage it.
Thank you.
And so with these products also come additional services to help you manage that incident, identify the forensics of how did it happen. If it's a threat, a ransomware threat, how do you deal with the ransomware? Do you pay it? You have privacy counsel, so all that additional service is built into the product. So I would think that, you know, that from our perspective, that's a key recommendation on the privacy, security, liability.
Okay, I want to deal more with when it comes to the recommendations you made about employee theft and other employees forgery and those kind of recommendations.
We're seeing an increase overall in that type of claim activity. You have some very good controls that have been put in place financially, so we don't think you're at a higher risk than any other organization. I will say there is an increase in what we call fraudulent impersonation risk, where someone's suggesting they're a vendor and trying to get you to pay them as if they are a traditional vendor, and funds are being wired left and right. We call it fraudulent impersonation, but that's where we're seeing a big increase in theft, if you will, from outside.
Okay, but I want to deal with when you took the additional recommendations you're talking about, when it talks about employee crimes and dishonesty.
Yeah. That piece is all built in there. It's in there are a number of different modules. So you have employee theft, you have funds transfer fraud that could be not employee theft, fraudulent impersonation. All that comes in that suite of products. But you know, it's from an employee theft standpoint. You know, you have good controls in place. That doesn't mean that, you know, your organization.
Somebody can hack it.
Yeah.
So,
and the premium's relatively, I'm sorry to interrupt, premium's relatively small.
Small. And that was my next question, just how much more are we talking about in premiums as compared to our vulnerability and our premium? See, you know, you got to compare. I don't care whether you call them apples to apples, or orange to apples, or greens to greens, or strawberries, or whoever it varies. It doesn't matter. If there is vulnerability there and the vulnerability is stronger than the premium cost, then we ought to be considering the premium cost, because if it hits us, you know, and it can simply be monies that are transferred from one department, you know, to another or somebody.
I would say, you know, it's hard to have a crystal ball to say where your next claim is going to be, and as soon as I do, I'm going to be wrong. I'm more concerned on the privacy, security, liability side, because those threats are coming everywhere. You've got a lot of good controls, and you've got an ability to detect theft in other areas. Not saying it's not a risk, but if I'm looking at the probability, I think on the privacy, security, that's a higher risk.
And the premium is smaller as compared to the risk.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to add something to Chester's question. What about the active shooter? I heard you mention that. Where is that included?
Well, you've got, if there's a third-party liability and somehow you're held liable because failure to protect or what have you, there's nothing that would be excluded under your general liability program. What we're seeing more is how's that going to impact operations economically, if people are scared to take transportation and then they're not getting onto the buses. So the products that are out there now, and I can't tell you that they're a good buy yet because they're relatively new and the premiums are pretty high, but it would be more to cover the economic impact of a terror or active shooter type of incident. But those premiums are usually start at $100,000 and go up, so that's a big spend for a risk.
So my final question is, when you compare what we're paying for and what you're recommending, what is the cost differential?
From expiring to now, I have about 6%. Is that where we are? 6% total?
So our increase overall from last year, yes, but he's asking about the increased price of that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So it's about not quite 10%, because it's if we even say the $5 million, it's like 16,000 over the 1.2 million.
If you bought all of them, including
the recommendations.
Yes.
We'll be paying what? How much more?
About 10% more.
16,000. Is that what you said?
32,000 for the cyber, and then another 75 for the fraud. If we went with the $5 million, so it would be right at $40,000 for the $5 million in cyber coverage, and then the fraud policy at $7,500.
No, what you're saying doesn't line up with what she just
She's
said.
using percentages, so I'm using dollars.
But you said 16,000.
So it's to purchase 5 million
Uh-huh.
in the network security and privacy liability at 16,000.
Okay.
1 million is 7,200 plus tax. 5 million is 16,000. So at the maximum, if you purchase the 5 million, it's 16,000.
Okay, see, and she's saying 40.
I'm adding the $7,500 and then the $12,000 increase from renewals. So if we added the cyber and if we added the fraud, we would be paying right at $40,000 more than we did last year. for
And that
insurance.
includes the renewal increase, the increase in the premium from last year to this year without buying anything new, plus those 2 new coverages, I think is what the number takes.
Okay, but just trying to get our hands around what would this additional
What
cost?
the numbers gonna be.
It's 16 plus 7?
For the
16
extra.
for the
23.
cyber and 7 for the other piece.
So that's 23.
Yes, for the new coverage, but that doesn't account for the increase in pricing from what you were currently buying last year to this year that we went through. There's some programs that went up, the property went up 5%.
Yeah, but that's under the dam, because we've already talked about that. We're talking, Chester, I
So the
think, wants to know,
$23,000 increase, that's all.
what's the
New-
additional?
New stuff.
Yes.
New stuff,
Yes.
23,000.
Thank you. No, that's
Sorry
fine.
for that confusion.
No problem.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah, I just had one question. I didn't quite understand it. I can't recall which slide this was on, but you made reference to a main storm deductible.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't, could you explain that?
Yes. So, a named storm is a named tropical storm, hurricane, that the National Weather Service officially named.
Okay.
If there is a named storm, then your property deductible goes up significantly if there's loss from a named storm. If you have a fire, it's
Right,
$5,000.
right.
If it's a named storm, your deductible is 1% of the values, and your values are 26.4 million. So, now if it is a wind event or tornado,
Right.
that's not a named storm.
Okay, okay.
But if it's a tropical storm or a hurricane that they name, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, all right.
It's an insurance thing, we try to make a distinction, because some insurance carriers will put a full wind deductible on it, so you got it for any wind event.
Right.
It's better to have the percentage deductible on the named
Named
storm,
storm.
because it.
All right, thank you.
They have a high grade concentration.
Is there anything we can insure?
I tried to put
You can
myself-
insure most anything for a price, unfortunately.
It's not got many people, doesn't have many people. I keep hitting the speed button.
Let's put Jay in the queue.
I got 2 questions.
I'm done, thank you.
Two more
The first question I had was, you said other coverage, consideration with the excess and umbrella insurance coverage, an estimated cost for that coverage, and why should we consider it?
We have not priced that out for you because it's not been something that the board has wanted to go forward with. There's consideration of the budget and costs versus the potential immunity. And so from your legal advisors, they felt comfortable with a $1 million limit. But that's not to say that.
I'm asking, why should we consider it? If it's under consideration, why should we consider it?
Because to the extent that you wouldn't be able to rely on sovereign immunity and there was a catastrophic accident that went for much higher than $1 million.
And my other question, I guess this is to leadership. What do our union leaders have to say about that, and did they have any input?
On the fleet insurance?
Yes. That's it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, with no other questions, let's circle back, I think, to this additional insurance that Chester raised. What are our opinions on this? Because cyber fraud is a rising problem. I mean, is there interest amongst us to have them revisit this?
Especially ransomware.
Yeah.
So are we going to the speaker board, or are we going to just random talk?
We're gonna try to get in the speaker board.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
You get on the speaker board.
I'm trying.
I'm gonna help. Good.
Yes, sir.
I think that the recommendations that they made, that we get the extended insurance, those recommendations, I think we very seriously need to consider putting those in place, and I guess it becomes a financial question. Can we afford it? If we can afford it, we need to put it in place. You don't have to go far. Just look at how the city of Savannah got locked out. See? The other part, yeah, I'm talking about just the other day. And then the other part of that makes me want to know more about the recommended coverage is how exposed are we? See, because now, you take for instance, we just, on the commission, we just had to cover some employee thefts, and that stuff can happen. We just had the stuff going with Chad, all right? And so, I think it's better for you to have some pants on than to be caught naked. And that's just my opinion, all right? And that's what I want to say. It's better to be covered than to be caught naked. If you get caught naked, not only will your vulnerability come from the loss of property and inventory, but you can also have some problems because you're gonna have to make whole some employees. See, and if you're out there with no coverage, then this whole outfit is exposed, and we might have to park more buses than we think.
I share your opinion. That's why I wanted to bring this back around to the board. And I'll notice that our CFO is shaking her head yes at the same time.
Yes.
I'm through.
So for the budget, it would be that 16 plus the 75, and we're already covering a little bit of an overage in the renewal. So for the cost, it is well worth it in coverage. And I think internally, that's why we started the conversations with Seacrest. If we go back to last year's budget, we tried to plan for a more financially stable year end, and we had always wished we could afford these policies, but with cash tight and operations in question, it was hard to look at these air quote luxury policies because we just didn't have the cash. But now, with this fiscal year rolling, we've got the money to be able to afford the policies and kind of feel like Seacrest and Commissioner Ellis that it's well worth it.
Right, which is why we asked Seacrest to provide a quote, because we think it is worth it, cybersecurity specialist.
And we had seen a smaller on the cyber, but considering the cost, the larger policy, I think would be what we would recommend.
So, let's bring Tabitha up if we can.
If we move forward with the insurance for the cyber and other types of technology thefts or intrusions, will they come out and give us recommendations? Do they audit it all, or is you just?
They don't come in and audit, but they do have some risk management tools that you can have access to.
And recommendations.
Policies, procedures, that sort of things. But there are other outside vendors that we could look to if you wanted a risk assessment to identify your vulnerabilities. Say that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to make sure, I'd like to get the IT covered, but I'd also like to make sure that what we have is consistent with the appropriateness of security levels based on the threats now.
Okay.
Because, I don't know that we know that.
So we can come back with some proposals of, what it would look like and how much it would cost to get an outside specialist to come in and do a risk assessment.
Okay, do we have any more questions before we move on? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Good presentation.
We appreciate it, and we're very pleased to be your partner, and thank you for working with us on the insurance.
We need a motion?
No, we got to wait till we get back.
Yeah, we've got to move on to the action items.
It's a presentation.
Oh, there's a presentation.
This is where it becomes action item.
Okay, so as we move on to the action items, obviously the first action item is the insurance approval. Ty, how do we deal with this addition now? The board is interested in the cybersecurity and employee theft. Do we have that now as we vote, or do we come back to it?
You need a motion to add that additional coverage.
Okay, we have, Chester has a motion or a question?
Motion.
Okay, second. So.
No, I gotta make the motion first.
I appreciate your confidence.
But what I offer a motion is that we accept the insurance with the recommendations to cover ourselves where we're vulnerable. So that would be what's in the packet already, plus the recommendations that we add together. That's my motion, to add.
All of the additional recommendations?
No, you got specific in the which specific items do you want to add?
Right.
Well, the specific items I'm looking at is I'm looking at the cyber and as well as I'm looking at the employees coverage.
Alright.
So you want both?
Yeah.
That's the 23.5, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And I will still second that.
So we still got a second. So all in favor of approving the insurance based on Chester's motion?
Yeah.
We vote.
You give us here?
Okay, the motion carries. So next up, Curtis, and I'm going to let you drive this one, is the approval to amend the contract with CRC.
Staff requests the board to approve an amended agreement with CRC or Coastal Regional Commission to provide temporary vehicles and operators for our paratransit service delivery. When we did an emergency contract with CRC, it had an old rate in there. It also had an incorrect revenue from the passengers. So we had to go back and change that, and we're asking the board to approve these changes so that they can meet their cost as they help us with this to the service delivery.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
Have we extended, is this contract extended past that old expiration, which is the end of this month?
No, the contract stayed the same, it's just the rate was changed.
So it expires June the 30th.
June the 30th, but there's a 15-day notice period, so
Right.
we're beyond that already.
So
It's a month to month.
month
So
to
a month to
month.
month.
It's a month
Right.
automatic
So do we need to
renewal,
renew for July, because we know we're
No,
not.
it's
gonna do
automatic.
it.
It's automatic.
Automatic.
I asked that question.
But anytime you want to terminate it, you need to give 15 days notice before the end of the month.
Yeah, I know, we don't, we ain't gonna terminate, that's for sure. We'll be in trouble.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, then there's a motion and a second, so let's go ahead and vote.
It's like somebody to get busy.
So we're waiting on Kevin.
If you have the vote, then you can move forward.
I'm not sure I can, I can't see how everybody's voting.
You can.
Okay, we have 7 votes to approve, so motion carries.
So we gonna execute this contract ASAP?
Yeah, after this meeting, we'll contact them and I'll
Those
shoot on my
26.
side, scan it to them or have them sign it.
Okay, then the next up, Curtis, again, is the approval for the renewal of the Remix software.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last year, the board approved the purchase of a 1-year Remix software license to give staff a tool for not only rerouting scenarios, but social and financial impacts for Title VI, as well as assistance with our TDP. It has come up for this renewal, and we're asking the board to approve another 1-year renewal for this Remix software license.
I move for approval.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chester, here we, oops.
Mike first.
Michael.
No, that was the last one.
Oh, okay.
No?
You can pick me up.
Just a new one, huh?
Okay, then Jay is first.
Can we get a brief update about what we did with the software this past year to the board?
Sure. Grant, would you like to update the board, please, since you've used it with Jorge and Aiden?
Yeah, so over the last year, the primary way we've used the Remix software is for our Title VI analyses. Equity analyses are an FTA required document and process that you complete whenever you have a major service change. And we've had 4 major service changes over the last year. We discontinued the 170X, the University Express for SSU. We discontinued Route 8, which was our Liberty Shuttle. We discontinued the 5D, which was our old dot route. And then we added the new dot routes. So for each of those, we had to do an equity analysis. Without software like this, it is very, very time intensive. It takes weeks to complete these documents. And Remix, they do all the hard work for you. They crunch all the data. We still have to reach out to the public and have those public meetings, but the document itself it does it for you. That's the primary way we've used it over the last year. But as we approach this redesign process that we're about to go through, it's allowed planning staff to kind of tinker with different ideas and see how it impacts our costs, how it impacts the people that we serve. It runs demographic analyses showing zero-car households that we serve, minority populations that we serve, low-income populations that we serve. So it's really robust, and we're actually looking at it. They have a new feature called a scheduling feature, and we use Trapeze software for our scheduling, and we're kind of playing with the idea of potentially using them for scheduling instead, because they're a really exciting software company, and they're doing some good things.
As far as cost savings, how much revenue have you saved over the year basically using the software? Estimate.
Over the last year, it's hard to say. I mean, it's more of a time saver for our staff. We get to focus on other things like applying for grants and such. Had we not had the Remix software, doing 4 Title VI analyses in a year would have taken a lot of time, and I'm not totally sure that we'd be able to apply for all those grant opportunities and do the rest of the stuff that we do. So I can't really put a dollar figure on that. For the coming year, though, as I mentioned a couple board meetings ago, we have to do our transit development plan, and this is going to be the primary tool that we use for that transit development plan. If we do not renew it, then we're going to have to kind of do stuff using our GIS software, which is also outdated and very time consuming. And this allows us to do everything internally, basically. And if we did it externally, our last DDP cost us about $200,000 from a consultant. So I think over the next year it'll save us hopefully $200,000. But over this past year, I can't quantify that.
All right. If this software is approved, I do want to make sure that next year, if it's brought before us, that we have some kind of cost analysis with it, because without having a cost analysis with it, I don't know if I'm spending $25,000 burning it in the air. So I'll be liberal this year, but I'm gonna be more conservative.
Sure.
Okay, next up, Chester.
3 things. First of all, I'm looking at data before me that says the date of this price summary is valid from February 12th until May 31st of this year. So is the price going to change? Because we're in June, it's in May.
No, it's not. They can have to send us an update.
All right, then it says the commitment term is from June 1 to May 31st of next year. So we're already in the commitment term?
So basically what happened with that was that last year the board approved, I believe, in July, and they gave staff access to the software in advance. So they gave us access in June. So the commitment term was until through the end of May.
Right.
So they've let us slide again for the last month. We've been using the software, but we haven't paid for it. We haven't signed a new agreement.
So next year we need to do this
a month earlier.
Earlier.
Yes, correct.
Okay, that's the point I want to make sure we get out. Secondly, this is based upon total fixed rate for a route, for the fixed route fleet of 66. That's what we're only doing it for fixed route. What about paratransit?
So technically this tool is for fixed route. It's how to build a route and what the impact is in terms of cost and demographics and everything. With paratransit, you don't have a route. You know, it's dynamic. It just picks people up. So we can, I mean, technically the GIS, the census data is filtered into this software, so we can pull that up and look at, you know, disabled populations and where they're centralized. But we could also do that with our GIS software. So I wouldn't say that this is a tool that we would really use for paratransit.
Oh, okay. So, we totally running a fleet of 66?
As of last year, yes, we can adjust that figure if need be.
Has it
That's how
increased?
they price out their software.
But but my question is, are we still at 66 or we increased this year? Is it still 66 from last year, or do we have more fixed route than 66?
Steve?
By all these buses that we're adding to it, we'll be right at 63, 66. And when we get our next 4 from Gillig on the trolleys, we'll be at 66. But we don't increase the fleet till 2020.
So we stay at 66 until 20?
Yeah, we're disposing of the older buses now, so we'll be sitting right at 66.
Okay, so every time a new one come in, the old one go off the line. The one with the hole in the floor is gone already?
You got it.
Yay.
Missed that.
I ain't missing.
Okay, Tabitha?
My first question is, can we open a door and get some air circulation, or it's really hot in here and I can't, it's hot, like really hot.
Turn down the air conditioner.
Cause I don't be on the floor.
Turn up.
The second question is the remix. This is a renewal for a license agreement. Okay, so I love license agreements. So the other softwares that are old that we currently use that we're looking at replacing, are we replacing them with leases? I mean, with a license agreement, or we're going to purchase? Are we going to move to license agreements so that they're not outdated, so that they can all be updated yearly?
What old?
The one he just mentioned that we use.
So our GIS,
Could we purchase?
purchased
Yes.
back in, I want to say we have a 2012 version, 2013 version.
Which is antiquated.
And it's old, and I
Does it
think
update?
we would like to move to that as planning staff, license agreement, so that we have up to date.
Is that something that we are looking at?
I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, it just depends on what the priority is. I mean, again, everything's a priority, but it's something that we would like to be at, yes.
Okay, so not for this one, but for the next coming, can you find out how much it would be to move those antiquated programs to a lease and update them? I think it is imperative on our part to give staff current updated tools to optimize their ability to perform.
I agree.
It's in the FY19 budget. Grant submitted it with his request.
For license agreements or
yes,
for
to
just
update the GIS software. They submitted that back in the budget development process. So as we move to next month and through next year, we'll be able to purchase a newer version.
Okay, to license.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
Not
not sure
purchase.
how much it was though.
Okay, for that and there's 2 of them that are antiquated, correct?
Our scheduling software is a little outdated too. We upgraded, I think it was last year, to the 14 version.
Yeah.
And there's, I want to say they're on 17 or 18 now. So we're behind on that.
And I know that sometimes, because we have this fight at the county with our CIS guy. I know that sometimes CIS wants to purchase because they feel like it's the best cost effective, but in reality it's not. Long term, it's more detrimental to the organization.
Well, with Trapeze, we've already purchased years ago, and so then if we want to upgrade to a newer version, we just have to pay for that upgrade. But we already have the main group of
Right,
Trapeze
but
software.
you can pay for the upgrade and go into a license instead of a purchase, right? There's 2.
With Trapeze,
Trapeze
we need
is
the
a
software
contract.
itself. We have to have the software.
Right, but they have two ways of purchasing, don't they?
I don't think so. Not the company that big, no.
So those are just purchases,
Yes.
trapeze?
Yes. Well, any
And what about the
used
yearly
dispensers.
updates?
That, well, they do maintenance to it, but if you want a newer version, you have to pay for it. So like Grant said, we have last year we upgraded to 2014 version, so we look at the cost, how much it'd be to 2017. A lot of times when a new version comes out, it has kinks in it, and so you don't always want to, kind of like with the new phones. So last year was 17, so we got the 14 version. And they don't necessarily come out with a new version every year, but I think it's 17 available now, so that we can look at purchasing the upgrade to that.
Yeah, I don't think we want to be more than 2 versions behind.
I agree.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, if there's no additional questions, do we have a motion and a second to approve?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
Chester?
No, I was still on the speakerphone.
The speakerphone?
Yeah, it was up there, that's
I'm
supposed to
sorry.
be speaking.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And then he called for motion. But my question is, and I'm still in the same with Tabitha, she says no more than 2, I said no more than 1. But do we look at, when we buy the software, do we look at how much it's gonna cost us to upgrade? But these things go out in 3 months, they go out in 6 months. You got an antiquated service after you bought it in 6 months. See, we're buying something, but do we look at how much the upgrade is gonna cost us as we go?
Yeah, every system that we have multiple systems were purchased, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years ago. I mean, we haven't bought a system since I've been here, as far as, aside from Remix, the software license. But Trapeze, we already had. Route Match, we already had for paratransit. Unis, Unitrack, RTA for maintenance. These were all purchased a long
time ago. I understand that. Okay, but my question is, and what I'm talking about is, we know we have all these different systems, all right, 4 or 5 different systems. But is there one that can bring all of them into one? And
Enterprise solutions, we constantly get bombarded by vendors to go to an enterprise solution. Yes, it's just the money, it's the cost.
So what is the cost for us when we're dealing with 5 different antiquated systems? If you're dealing with 5 different antiquated systems, is that costing us more money to still deal with them? Or is it costing money for us to move to a system that can integrate all of those? Because, you know, the biggest problem you have when you're talking about systems is they're not compatible. The information you have in the old system, the new system won't accept it.
Right.
Okay? And what I'm saying is, we have to look at it as an investment rather than as a one-time cost, right? So we've got all these antiquated systems, and every day I get, just like last night, between 8 and 11 o'clock, I got 13 phone calls about that WTOC thing, and I'm saying that's got to be a system problem. We can't get the right paratransit van, or we can't get the right fixed route bus what it's supposed to be. See, there's something wrong with the system, and I'm asking, rather than having 5 or 6, how many systems we have? Who can tell me?
I can tell you, I mean, Ty, I'm gonna look for some help here. You know, we're trying to approve Remix, and now we're involved in a long discussion about other software. We should come back to this discussion. Because what we're doing now is we're spending 15 or 20 minutes off of the motion.
Rescind the motion off the floor.
So I mean, I think this is why we're not getting through our meetings, because we drift into other important topics. I'm not minimizing this conversation.
But the Remix thing brought us to this conversation.
Yeah. So now we should come back.
He's not saying not have the conversation. He's saying we need to go back.
What you're talking about is important, but it's extraneous to the motion to purchase the Remix.
Carry the motion. Let's go.
Well, the thing is, his thing was on that screen before they made the motion.
Listen, let's go and vote. Go and vote. I'ma slam it.
And
when I get
I
ready
wasn't the
anyway.
mover, but I'm listed as the mover.
Let's just go.
I mean, if it makes it easier, I'll be the mover.
Motion's already made.
Motion's made and seconded, so let's vote.
Yeah, we don't vote.
I wasn't the mover though.
I changed it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so where are we? Tabitha.
Waiting on you to show up.
Okay, motion carries for the remix software. Okay, next item is also another purchase and implementation, and that's of the APCs, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff requests the board to approve the award of the contract for the purchase and implementation of our APC systems, automatic passenger counters. The board approved putting out an RFP for this. An RFP was issued in April, and we received 3 bids, and they are graded on this board report. And the winning bidder was Urban Transportation Associates. For a cost of $417,260, which 80% will be covered by a federal grant and 20% by SPLOST local match.
I'll move for approval.
Can't move for approval.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Speaker's waiting to speak, Jay.
All right. With the APCs, what's the turnaround time as far as getting them installed? If this is approved.
Steve.
If approved, we'll move forward, get the rec done, PO done, and 60 days to install.
So we'll be fully APC in 60 days.
60 days once the rec's done, PO's done, and we pass it on.
Contract signed.
Contract signed, 60 days.
If this is approved, I would like to make sure that it is notated in 2 months that this thing is completed as a project.
Absolutely.
And that is it for me.
Chester. Oops, I'm sorry, Todd.
I have a question. I probably shouldn't bring this up, but is Urban Transportation Associates in any way connected with Professional Transit Management, also Cincinnati, and therefore with Veolia Transdev?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Do we know that?
Yes.
Are you know it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
This is not a Tom Hawk.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. No.
So there were 3 proposals submitted, and they went through our normal process of the review and determination of reasonableness, responsiveness. We check the references.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
it's not BLE.
Point of order.
Sure.
Ty, don't we need to have a motion before discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
So it
So
goes
we
back
don't
to
have a
Bill.
motion yet.
So we had a motion from Bill, but he was,
And I seconded that.
second, so we have a motion and a second for discussion.
Now we clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, then Chester.
Jay's timeline, based upon what Steve says, it's not 60 days from the day, right?
No, it's.
All right, now
60
how
days
long
from
does
the
it take
contract
for,
is signed.
all right, how long does it take for us to get the contract and all that signed? The other work you mentioned that has to be before the 60-day start. See, because somebody gonna leave here thinking that we start in 60 days from, because we voted for it today. That's not happening.
As soon as it's approved, I'll start the rec process,
How long it take for the rec process?
usually probably 2 days, and then it goes through the approval stages of Terry, Curtis, and then it'll move into a PO.
So when does it go to Ty? Doesn't Ty have to
Ty would have to
oversee all of our
contract.
contracts?
I'll look at the contract.
So when does it go to Ty?
As soon as the contract is finished. I mean, it goes to them and Ty, and then they ask for modifications.
No. Ty can't be going over nothing he ain't got no information on. The first thing gotta come from Steve, right?
Right, I do the rec. and
You
the
said it
PO.
takes you 2 days, 2 to 3 days?
For me to do the rec.
All right, then it goes to Terry?
Goes to Terry and
From Terry, where does it go?
So the requisition goes electronically in the system. It has to be approved by Curtis because of the amount and by me.
So how many
because
days
it's
we talking
grant
about?
funded, so the requisition process takes about 2 days. Once the PO's
So that's a
issued-
week. All right, then now it's in Curtis' hand now? After a week, your 3 days, your 2 days.
It's the
it's
same
in-
2 days. So 2 days
All
from
these-
rec
all
to
that is
PO.
done in 2 days.
Then the contract is drafted, sent to legal,
Mhm.
legal reviews, and it's sent to both UTA and Curtis for signature once it's approved by legal. So it depends on everybody's workload.
Right.
But our timeline for this, because of the critical nature of the APCs, is that the contract will be executed by both parties by the end of this month
Mhm.
in order to have the APCs installed and functioning by the end of August.
And so therefore, Ty would have seen it by the end of the month.
By the end of this month, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, and Ty would have.
Which is Friday.
Okay, yeah, that's my
Yeah,
point. It's
yes,
Friday.
it's Friday, yes.
Okay, so then Ty, from you, and then we can start the 60-day count?
I'll be out of town tomorrow and Thursday, but I'll be here Friday.
Okay.
So the summary is the end of August, these things will be installed and functional?
Okay.
That's our commitment.
And I'll
Going forward.
All right, so we got a commitment.
So I don't have to come in here. I would like that report at the next meeting, because he said an estimate of 60 days. So whether it's done or not, we still want to report in August.
Right, the only thing that could change it, in the proposal, we required the vendor to commit
This is
to the
June.
60-day implementation. We haven't notified the vendor, we can't notify the vendor until the board approves the award.
Next month.
Once we notify the vendor, we have to negotiate with him a start time. We hope that it follows that 60 days, it could be 65, depending on the vendor start time.
So if it gets to the vendor and they give us a different number, rather than 60, 65, or 70, or 75,
We
or
need an
100.
update.
Yeah, so when do we get that, can we expect that update from you all as soon as possible? As soon as you get it? If they don't agree to the 60 days? She said when it goes to the vendor, when you talk to the vendor.
Any changes in the timeline that we're discussing right here, I can certainly update the board.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And my reasoning for saying that, because we've had those new buses we got in, we done made a grand statement about we got new buses, people looking for them, and the folk call me and ask me why they not on the street. See? And so I want to make sure that all of the licensing and the tags and
APC.
whatever else, and da-da-da, and doo-doo-doo, and anybody do, I want to make sure it's all done so that when we say in 60 days, then we can expect this thing to be working, up and going, rather than being parked behind the building.
Okay, we're a minute over, so let's move on
Let's
to
go for it.
tab.
What?
So you up there?
Just saying.
Did you hit a button?
Oh, I did hit a button. The score, we chose urban transportation just because they got the highest score, right? It's not because the cost was only 10% of the rating.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
The RFP process allows qualitative judgments based on other than price. And for this, we kind of need an implementation support team. So the nature indicated that we would score it on qualifications other than price. Yes.
Okay.
They don't have to come from Spain, do they?
Oregon.
Boy, we waiting on no people.
Okay, so,
We don't have to worry about that ever again.
It's already moved to the
so if there's no further discussion, we're going to vote for the purchase of the APCs.
Who's the mover?
Bill and I was the second.
Yep.
You got the mover in the second row. On here it says Chester and Pete.
Yeah, no, but it's Bill and Mike. So we don't have to worry about which Bill this time.
Right.
not a part of the board, it's a point of so you're gonna fix it in the system. Because it's gonna show in the minutes, we go through the move in a second.
Okay, so the motion carries. So the APCs we purchased and installed by end of August. Okay, then the next up is the strategic plan adoption. I guess I should start this conversation since the strategic plan is a board document. So just to remind everybody, last summer we spent a great deal of time working on the strategic plan, which was the board's vision of where CAT should go over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It was more specific for the first 5 years, obviously. After that, it's a goal. So this plan that we worked on, we've been talking about it quite a bit. And now we're coming into the next fiscal year. And we need to back up a little bit and get this publicly adopted is our roadmap to where we want this to go in the future. And to remind everybody, the plan for this is that we've taken all of these different portions of it and we've divided it up by committee. So we have a good piece of it that's attached to the Finance Committee, and for that group, Curtis and Terry were responsible for answering the Finance Committee where we are with this plan. And for the System Development Committee, we have Curtis and Patricia responsible for where are we with this plan. And then for the service delivery, we have Curtis and Michael responsible for this plan. And it's my goal that we will begin to push this plan, because if we remember further, we basically tied Curtis's incentive plan to the first year of the 5-year plan. So it's important to me, and I think important to Kat, that we all work on the same page as to where we want this system to go. And this is a living document, so we are going to have to alter this, because we didn't make all of our goals for 2018, and we probably need to change some for the next years and the year after. So as we work in our committees, we're going to be constantly updating this and constantly getting reports back from the group. So the request here is to formally agree to our strategic plan that I think Curtis has given a presentation to at least once, and we've talked about it several times in committees. So with that, I'd like a motion and a second to start any discussion that we have in this plan.
Motion.
Second.
Do we have any discussion, Jay? Yes.
I know we have stated that we've talked about it in committee meetings a lot of times, and I know it's been discussed for over a year or whatever the time frame we've been discussing it, but I don't think we've put enough time into it, and because of that, I will not be voting for the strategic plan. So I'm just making sure I publicly make that known.
Okay.
Thank you.
Chester?
We talk about the plan and the strategic plan, but once we put the plan in motion, once we adopted last year when we adopted the plan, I thought it's up to staff then to implement those parts of the plan that we, isn't that the CEO's job to make sure the plan is implemented?
Yes.
All right, so therefore, if we haven't done what we're supposed to do in 2018, so getting ready to go to 18-19, that means that the CEO haven't done what he's supposed to do, because he's supposed to implement whatever we put out, right? Am I correct? See, here's my frustration, and it's real, true frustrations. If we have a plan, and we give the plan to staff to implement, it's their job to get it done. What I see us doing is you're coming back and saying, the board didn't do, the board didn't do. Well, then you come back and tell us that you're going to give us some policies, you're going to write a code of ethics where the staff, where the board not supposed to be talking and and being a part of the staff, and so therefore you can't implement no plan like that. That doesn't work. And the thing is that when we sit down and we draw up the plan, like any other organization, it is up to the CEO, it's up to the county manager, it's up to the city manager to implement that plan from the board, from the commission or whoever else, all right? So when we talk about this plan not having been, we haven't done much with it, is because the CEO has not pushed this himself. And so I'm saying, if we going forward, and we want to be aggressive and we gonna move, then we're gonna have to get some people off their behinds and get to work and do the work that is required to get the plan done. We can plan all we want, but you have to implement the plan. And the implementation comes from staff, it doesn't come from board. And I want to make sure that as we talk about it in committee, as we talk about it among ourselves, as we talk about it here in this board meeting, that we all know the implementation of the strategic plan is that we are going to put this in motion because, and I'll say it publicly, privately, or in between, under the table, over the table, ever since we hired Patricia for her position, which was supposed to be for strategic planning, I've been looking for her to talk about strategic planning, and I ain't got that. That has not hit this table. That has not been in no discussion that we've been in. And so I want to make sure, see, no matter what you cut off, and I got 20 seconds, no matter what you cut off, when we come up and say this plan, then staff know that it's their job to implement this plan. The folks we hired to do it are the folks I expect to do it. If they're not going to do it, then give them their pink slip and let them hit 95, because they should not be hired if they're not going to do what we hired them for.
Mr. Ellis, that is completely out of order. It violates the code of conduct and ethics that was adopted by this board. It also is in direct contravention of the CAT Enabling Act, which gives responsibility for management of staff exclusively to the CEO.
Well, you and I saying the same thing, but except that you saying I'm out of order and I'm not out of order.
Well, you're making recommendations about.
I'm not making no recommendation. I'm just saying, when we adopt a plan, it's up to staff to carry out that plan.
You went beyond that statement.
Well, that's,
you went to the point of saying.
I think that's like in court of law. Everybody got an opinion, and I'm entitled to mine.
Okay, I think I can sum this up, Chester. I mean, I agree with you. It is the CEO's responsibility to implement these policies that are in this plan. We have to adopt this plan, and then we hold Chad, or we hold Curtis, I'm sorry, Freudian slip. We hold him responsible for it moving forward.
Right.
Nobody's saying that we do not, and nobody's saying that the board is responsible for this plan. What I've said is the board has been responsible for designing the plan, and if we want to change the plan, that's us. But we don't implement it. All I want these committees to do is keep tabs on it and push it a little bit harder. That's all I'm saying. Ultimately, it is Curtis's responsibility. And as far as this year goes, well, this is an executive session statement, so I'll stop you there.
I thought what was proposed for today was adoption of the strategic plan.
That's all it is.
It's never been adopted.
Yeah,
It's never been adopted.
That's what I thought.
That's all we're doing is we want to adopt the plan that we worked on last summer and put it in motion to move forward. That's what this is about. Okay, so we have two speakers. Jay?
Ty.
Yes.
Point of order for point of order references moving forward. Can you please, if you call anything point of order, can you make sure you state what the point of order statement is and not have to retract it after he has a further discussion about it? So if you say he's out of order, then call him out of order, but state what he's out of order on.
Right.
I did.
You did it after. You did it after he restated a different statement.
I'm not a member of this board.
Understood, but you call out a point of order.
I'll give legal opinions.
Understood, but you gave a point of order. If you're going to give a point of order, you must give that full point of order and what the statement's on the point of order, if you're going to do that. So you say you're not a member of the board, but you gave a point of order statement.
Yeah, we read Robert rules too.
Thank you for your legal opinion.
I appreciate it.
We read Robert rules too.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Tabitha?
I know sometimes I get confused. I know we talked about the strategic plan. I know that we've been discussing the strategic plan, and we've been talking about it and discussing it, and everybody's been making notes in all the committee meetings. But is it finished?
It is now.
I mean,
it's.
We've seen the drafts, and we discussed the drafts in the committee meetings.
That's the
But-
plan, that's it. Now, is it finished? It's never finished, because it's a living document. As far as that plan exists today, it's finished, and it's ready to go. And that's where we want Kat and we want Curtis to lead us next year. And I remind everybody, this plan was done by asking everybody to fill out where they wanted Kat to go, and then it was a summary spreadsheet that was put together.
Yeah, and then we went to committees and discussed those things.
Yeah. And there's never been
Of
any
those things-
objections to anything on that.
Well, I don't think anybody made objections. I think people brought up other points and different topics and expansions on some of the particular topics we were discussing. So, is anything that was discussed in committee been added to it, or no, or?
I don't think there's anything that's been discussed in committees that has altered it that I remember.
Oh.
Dr. Hyahan.
My only question is the dates. Since we're not really tomorrow, the end of the month is the end of 18. So this should be 19 to 23, since we didn't implement any of 2018.
Well, not any, we did
Well,
some.
what we did do, but
Yes.
we can actually
We have to
change the
redo
dates,
the
'cause we haven't adopted it
2018,
for
has to
18.
become 2019.
Okay.
So we're adopting this to move forward.
We're adopting.
You still have to use the 18.
We never adopted.
We're
it.
adopting.
We wouldn't be doing nothing 18.
We had already started things, but
We
the
already
strategic
started.
plan even came about.
All right, then leave the dates.
What?
You can't
What?
say, you gotta say 18, 19.
You can't just push it forward.
Right.
We're still.
I understand that.
Right.
We're adopting 18 that we didn't do, right?
Did some of.
Okay, so is that what we're gonna put, do we clarify it? Are we gonna say that? We didn't do it, it's changing, we're moving?
You just clarified it in the minutes.
Oh, God, Jesus, okay.
Okay, so
Unfortunately, it's middle of the year that we do it.
unless there's any further discussion, I mean, I would like to call for a vote to adopt a strategic plan as it's been given to everybody on different spreadsheets. So do I have a first and a second?
I think we had that already.
Okay, so all in favor to adopt the strategic plan?
Yeah, we did.
Yes, opposed is no. Cabinet?
Yes.
Waiting for you.
You gotta.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, the motion carries with 5 yes, 3 noes, and
I'm not here.
a no vote.
Well, he's not here, so it's been 8 all day.
Okay, next case, I think we're through with the action items. Chairman, so I'm going to back up for a second. I didn't do this because I wanted to go directly to the insurance. Come on back for a second. I just moved into you.
That was poor timing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do this before we got to the action items, but I wanted to keep the momentum going towards the insurance renewal. So I think, as everybody knows, Bill Broker has asked to resign from the board because he's been appointed judgeship. He doesn't have time to do it, which is end of an era, because Bill has been on this board for a long, long time. He's been a good board member and a voice of reason, and we really appreciated his contributions. But I think this is probably going to be his last board meeting.
That's my understanding. I've not been officially notified.
Okay, and also unofficially notified, we have the new board member, who is Edmonston. Okay. So he'll be joining us, assuming this all becomes official in July.
Yeah, correct.
So we are happy to have him on board. you're going to have some very big shoes to fill in trying to fill in for Bill Roker.
I was wondering what you were doing in
Fill him in, Bill.
Huh?
Fill him in.
I figured somebody would figure it out sooner or later, so I
So
wanted to announce.
this is your last board meeting?
Well, I mean, until I'm notified by the clerk or city council.
Could be your last board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the city council had to.
Yeah,
But he has been,
that's who
But they
appoints
did,
me.
they did do a vote?
They did,
At the last
he's
one?
approved in the seat,
Oh.
but they still have to
so-
do the notification.
Yeah, you just haven't been notified, but they
Right.
did it at the last board meeting. Okay, okay. All right, now I'm saying.
So this could be your last board
Could
meeting.
be
I think
last
that's
board.
right.
We don't have a cake today.
Look here,
You have to come back for
Bill,
Do we have to
come
do-
next month, all right?
Do we have to vote whether
Just
he can
in
go or
case.
not? Huh?
I don't think we got that.
We ain't got no choice? Cause I was finna put an ankle on, I would put a chain on his ankle.
Can't do that. I'd like
Can't
to
go
do
from
that,
here.
too.
I think everybody would. So Bill, thanks again for all your service.
Thank you.
And we're really sorry to see you go.
I appreciate that.
We give you deals on the peach cobbler.
Thank you.
I'm gonna let
If
you
you
get
come
your
back for
pepper.
lunch one of these days, we'll have a cake for you.
Also, if I can just say, I'm incredibly excited about this. I personally don't have a car, and so transit in many forms has been a huge part of my life and the ability to have a good life here in Savannah, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of CAT. So, thank you.
And I guess we should tell him that we have committee meetings on July 10th, and assuming this all becomes official, we'll put
I
you
guess
on
I'll
the
touch
committee and
base with
invite you.
somebody at some point with some sort of arrangement.
But it's baptism by fire. Just
That's
know
totally
that.
fine.
Yeah.
You get to know Beverly.
All
Do
right.
we have the schedule?
Yes, sir.
You want to give them a copy
I
of
will
the
print one
meeting
out.
schedule?
I found some stuff online.
Okay, so with that in mind, Curtis, do you want to take us through the executive director's report?
Me, Mr. Chairman, the executive director's report is in your packet. I just got the numbers.
Yeah, all of us did.
I'll address any questions you may have regarding it, and your federal and state updates for lobbying is also in your packet.
Do we have any specific questions for Curtis? We've discussed a lot of this at the committee meetings this week. Anything anybody wants to bring up? Then we will move on to unit updates, starting with system delivery. Michael.
I'm sorry, can I just interject one thing? I gotta follow up with something that was asked, at the last board meeting. I forgot, excuse me. It was asked, what percentage of our fleet would be on its useful life, when new buses hit the street, and the answer to that is 25 to 30%. So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Appreciate it.
I also wanted to have Jimmy talk a little bit about the update on the Florence Smartest rehab and some warranty information that was asked at our last meeting as well.
Yeah, you guys had a question about some of the warranty work on the ferry rehab that's going on. There's a lot of different components that are going into the ferry that are new, so they all have their own different warranties. The engines have a different warranty, generator different warranty. As far as what you guys approved the other day for the UltraJet, for the mechanical electrical pump going on top of the drive, that's a 5-year warranty. Everything with the drive has 5-year warranty. And as far as the work that was approved for the whole, the shipyard will perform the work. It'll be checked by the Coast Guard and approved. So anything, they will back the work up anyways, but it has to be, goes through U.S. Coast Guard approval before it can go in the water. So everything will be 100% on that.
Thanks, Jimmy. Also, briefly, I just want to point out that as far as our ridership is up in ferry operations also. We hired 7 fixed route operators last month that will be ready for service. They're planning to be out the class by July 9th. There's some pictures of some projects that we completed that's in your packet. Also, our year-to-date, we're up a 10th of a percentage on our passengers per hour in paratransit. And I'll address any other questions you may have. Service delivery.
I think that Michael is first. Dr. Harhan?
Oh, that's probably the old one, because you paused me. I'm actually off. There we go.
Okay, then Tabitha's up.
This is just a history question. We don't charge people to ride the ferry? Why?
I can address that. The ferries are free due to the hotel motel tax. So your taxpayers do not pay for the water ferry. It's a hotel motel tax to all the hotels in the downtown district. There's a per occupied room fee that comes and pays for the water ferry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chester?
Yeah, Mike, I need for you to school me, to teach me why is it that we can't get the paratransit stuff right now. Listen, at our last one meeting, all right, we voted to bring CRC in. Okay, you got to stop saying what Yellow Cab did, 'cause that's more than a month old. See, within that month, we should have gotten a working plan ready for paratransit. Perception is 90% of people's thought. If they think that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Understand what I'm saying? When I text you and say I need the facts, you can't tell me resources. You know the day before, what did you say, 4 o'clock? Who we gonna pick up? How many we need to pick up? All right. Let's say you got 15 drivers who drive for paratransit. You know from 4 o'clock the day before as to where you need to assign all 15 of those paratransit vans, right? That morning or late that night, 2 people call and say they're not gonna come to work for paratransit drivers. You ought to have, if you don't have backup folks in place, you ought to have somebody that you can take and shift their load, those 2 people who are not showing up, shift their load between the other 13 who are going to be working.
That's exactly what we do.
All right, so we know every time a paratransit van leaves the yard, every time it comes from, it's going to make 4 trips. The one to pick up, the one to deliver, the one to go back, pick up, the one to take them back to their rhythm, right?
Right.
All right. I can't understand why we are still having problems. And everybody knows we don't have all the buses that's the ones that's sitting in the yard that can't move. We know we don't have those available before the stuff even come up. I can't understand why time after time we get emails, text messages, telephone calls, even at funerals. I'm getting telephone calls about folks who got left or wasn't picked up, and I can't understand that still going on now. I don't. I don't understand why we don't have a plan to ensure if we're missing 2 drivers, how are we gonna fill that load? You don't have to explain that to me.
Okay, so we do have a plan. We just don't have the people. So you articulated exactly what happened.
So if you don't have the people, you can't have a plan.
No, we have a plan. It takes a while to implement the plan. So we have people coming through training right now. We've had people that have come through training. So the demand really is outpacing what we have in resources because, and I'm not throwing Yellow Cab under the bus because Yellow Cab left without notice, okay? So there has to be a growing pains, and that's what we're going through right now. We don't have extra people sitting around when someone calls in sick for paratransit. We just don't have that luxury right now. We're getting there, but we're not there right now. So what you said just a minute ago, what happens is exactly what happens. If we have 2 people calling sick, so we take the people on that manifest and we put those folks on other operators' manifest. But that causes delays. So all of a sudden we had a manifest that was really workable. Now we're squeezing trips in between trips. That's why you get calls, and that's why we have delays.
All right, let me ask this
13
question.
to 18 manifests were dumped on us every day since Yellow Cab left. CRC is providing 6 drivers.
So there's
So
still
we have to
a
come
gap.
up with 7 additional. Right. Or on Wednesdays up to 17 additional.
Absolutely.
Drivers and vehicles. So one of the things that I was going to bring up, and as new business, but I might as well bring it up now, if you're okay with that.
No, I was gonna suggest you bring it up now.
One of the options that I recently approached Terry and Mike about was doing emergency procurement with First Transit or another group to hire trainers and possibly with vehicles to come in and run 4 to 5 classes concurrently and get them out of training so we can be out of this mess by the end of the summer. That's one avenue we can go.
But in the meantime,
we need drivers and vehicles.
In the meantime, we're using staff.
We can't invent. I mean, we're using staff to drive. We're using everybody to drive. I mean,
okay. Let's be specific. What happened yesterday? That somebody picked up Robert. Somebody delivered Robert. Somebody didn't come back and get Robert. Now what happened?
I'm gonna let Chris just.
We looked that up, and we went back for Robert, and he was a no-show. That means that we went there, the driver waited at least 5 minutes, we attempted to make an outgoing phone call, and got no response from Robert, so the driver had to move along, so as not to delay everybody else in their manifest. When Robert calls and says now he's ready to go, then we have to try to find somebody available to come back, and that's very difficult when our schedules are packed so tightly. So we did make an attempt at Robert in his time window, but we could not make contact with him, and so the driver moved along.
so similar to the other one with the Barnes restaurant.
Yeah.
The no-shows,
Yeah,
yes,
it's the
same
same
thing.
thing.
Same thing.
But they usually don't tell you all that when they call and complain about us not being there. That we were there, they weren't ready, we called, maybe they didn't answer. We had to move on to the next pickup, so we wouldn't make the next pickup late and the next pickup late. That information usually doesn't.
So now the folks that we are transporting, they know that they're supposed to be accessible by phone at a certain time. They know what the time. Do they know what their pickup schedule is?
Yes, we have a automated system that makes outgoing calls every afternoon and says, tomorrow your pickup at such and such a location is at 9:30. Please be aware the van may be 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after.
That's just a confirmation call.
That's a confirmation.
That's not the first time they're hearing information. It's just reconfirms.
No, they get the
like when
pickup
the doctor's
times.
office calls you the day
Right.
before to confirm your appointment.
They get the pickup times when they call the trip in. The reservationist puts it on the vehicle and gives them their window at that point as well.
Okay, so now explain to me, and I did this and Howard knows because I put it on speakerphone so everybody who was in that meeting with me could hear. Explain to me how the situation with Dr. Williams' office went down.
I don't know the details of the situation at Dr. Williams' office.
Does anybody know?
Well, the issue with Dr. Williams is we just get backed up, and sometimes with the pickups in the afternoon, like I tried to explain to you yesterday, and maybe I wasn't as clear in the email, is with the demand through the day, as it gets later and later in the day, we get further and further behind, and that causes some of those issues with Dr. Williams. And I've been in contact with Dr. Williams, and I will meet with Dr. Williams so we can discuss some of the issues that she's having as well. But that's usually the cause.
And the issue with the young man who I have to go back to my email to find out that sent us the thing when we were at the county, when we were at the commission meeting, who says he didn't want to talk to nobody at CAT because they don't do nothing, so he sent the letter, and I called Beverly, and at the same time I had Linda to send you all emails. This is happening too much. All right, whatever y'all plan is for paratransit ain't working. And now if you're not smart enough to sit down and say this ain't working, we need a new plan, because we get constantly, he get calls, she get calls, you get calls, and I call Beverly. It's like I might as well move and be her husband. Because I have to constantly call her, listen, tell Mike this is the situation. Tell Mike this is the situation. Tell Mike this. Yellow Cab been gone for a month. Because we dealt with Yellow Cab at the last board meeting by getting CRC. But yet we have not figured out how to deliver the services. You know the 6 emails that I'm looking at now on this thing now? All I'm asking me now, Commissioner Ellis, since you're using my money to pay for paratransit, find y'all another company. And I'm not exaggerating, I'll let you read it. But that's what folks are asking us. That's why the young man said, and I don't want to call his name out. That's why I'm using young man. That's why he texts us. He texts everybody on the commission. I don't want to talk to nobody from CAT because all they do is give me excuses and full of bull. And I ain't going to use the other part of the bull he put out there. But he said, I'm not getting where I'm supposed to be on time. The lady called the TV station because her son's not getting it. I said, this is happening too much. And folks are asking the county commission to find them somebody else who can handle paratransit other than CAT. Y'all might as well be real.
And Curtis, it comes back to
We can do an
more
emergency
people.
procurement and bring in people, and I mean, it depends on, it's obviously going to be at a high cost. But until we have our staff ready and trained, that's the only option. CRC could not fulfill that. We thought we were going to get them to fulfill that. They only can provide 6. So we thought we told them 13 in the meeting. They said we're going to start us out with 2, and then it never got above 6. So we have to move a different direction. A different direction is to pay more money to have another company help us until we can hire our own people and get vehicles in. I can't go just down the street and buy a vehicle. There's special vehicles, and we've already had grant funding for that are stuck up in Atlanta because of some spec on a lift that they won't let them release. So I can go out and do an emergency procurement and contract people and vehicles, and we can pay for that. That is the solution outside of what we're doing now.
Well, now when you talking about spending this extra monies for that, I hope you're not talking about passing that on that cost to the county.
Let's can we come back to that?
So the county pays for paratransit, right?
Curtis, Chester, we're going to circle back on that in executive session. The cost.
Okay.
Jay. If it's new, if it's a repeat, let's. I think we all get the message that we have a serious problem with paratransit, and I think we get the message that we're not doing a very good job of it. We're not covering what we need to cover. And we need a new plan.
May I talk?
Sure.
Whether it's repeated or not, or whether I state what I state things because it needs to be put in the minutes. So it's stated that James Jones said X, Y, Z. So with that being said, Mike stated that something was causing us to be further behind. Curtis kind of elaborated on it, but what is causing us to be further behind? That's just restating your comment.
People that aren't ready on time, over and over and over as the day goes on, everything builds and builds. It's a domino effect. So in the afternoon, the driver, and through whether it's that or traffic, are getting things added to their manifest because somebody called off. That's why the afternoon gets backed up.
So it is stated that we may need to go and get more drivers or more vehicles. Is this the only organization that does this kind of service in Savannah?
Who the organization?
The organization that we're dealing with is CRC.
In Savannah, yes. They don't provide strictly paratransit. They provide also regular trips as well.
But is this the only paratransit?
We would have to contract with somebody like First Transit or Transdev/Veolia or NEC, maybe National Express. We would have to contract with a large company to get vehicles and people brought in.
All right. Because
there's no local vendor. No.
Every morning I walk, Weaver Transportation comes and picks up somebody. I don't know if that's tied into that whole system, but they do it. I walk the other street, it's another transportation. So there are other organizations out there. If this is such a problem with them can't get more than 6 drivers, why hasn't it been brought to us that we go out and do it? Part 1. Part 2, I stated in our meetings last week, I need a plan. Okay, Chester's more concerned about the retro. I'm about what's moving forward. And I stated at this meeting, I wanted to see a plan. What is our plan of action once we get fully established as far as CAT running paratransit. Because I specifically asked for that in our committee meetings. I know I specifically asked for this. And then I also sent in an email for on Sunday, hey, we're not going to talk about paratransit. So I asked for it twice, in my opinion. What is our plan? I mean, I understand Commissioner Ellis is concerned about the retro side. I'm concerned about the moving forward side. Because I need to see what we're going to do moving forward so I can make those phone calls, those emails, and all those other people who try to get in. They got my personal number.
Did you get a copy of the press release?
I saw the press release.
So a lot of those things in there is what is our part of our plan. We
Yeah, but a lot of people don't.
We added call center. We contracted with TCS for bodies. We've rented vehicles. There's a lot of things that we've done to compensate. There's no more vehicles out there to rent. So now we have to look at emergency procurement and not just CRC, not just TCS, but now additional company because the demand is not being met. We were under the assumption CRC would meet that benchmark, and they just cannot do it.
But my thing is, when did they say that they couldn't do more than 6? Because at that point, it should have been in my hand at that point. When they said they couldn't do more than 6, that's when it should have been an emergency meeting happen. Because at that point, the calls will still come.
Our emergency meeting was with Commissioner Ellis when they actually only could provide 2.
He's one person. I get calls too. So just because I don't call you and let you know I get calls, because you know why I don't do that, and I told Mike this, one-on-one I told Mike this. I said, Mike, I understand you doing everything you can to get it fixed. But any kind of information dealing with paratransit should be transmitted to everybody. Because I don't like bombarding the statements. I don't like repeating the stuff, just like Howard just said earlier. But if I'm informed about everything, then when somebody calls me, then I can inform them. Chester is more aggressive than I am. But it doesn't mean that I don't need to be informed.
I thought you were going to send us, Curtis, a weekly update after you have your conference call with CRC as to where we are for the next week.
Yeah, after.
So I thought you were, for me, I thought we were going to get from you every week kind of an update on where we were going, what was our sort of continuing plan. And I think that would help us because we're all a little bit.
They were supposed to have that.
We are.
Meeting every week and then let us know every week.
The summary of what was
we haven't got and now your frustration is mine. You know what I'm talking about.
I admit I haven't got the plan.
Yeah,
it's all my frustration.
Same thing here.
I want you to understand I'm for CAT, but it's making it very hard for me when I get phone calls from them, but I ain't getting nothing from CAT.
And I'm getting people who pay the money who saying move and get somebody else.
I'm done. I apologize.
Yeah, that's all right. No, it wasn't. You raised some good points, Jay. I think that Curtis, it would help us all if you could have Michael or somebody implement to us kind of a status update at the end of a week. What's it looking like for next week? How many drivers can we find and where can we get them? I think for me this driver thing is the stumbling block. We need more drivers. How about Chester? How about the church buses I see that are parked during the day?
ADA accessible.
They have to be ADA successful.
Right. And the majority of them not. The majority of church buses.
I don't. It's a Weaver Transportation, and they have a lift at the back. I mean, that's my only. And so I don't know what it is. I know they have a lift.
I mean, my opinion on this is that we have to think out of the box a little bit, and we shouldn't worry right now about the cost.
We should just worry about.
We have to do this.
So
if we have to pay extra to somebody, I think we need to do it and pay it.
I agree.
And we'll sort it out later.
Because there's some other folks running around here and just plain white, no writing on them except the CICC the ICC number on them that's carrying folks, and they got lift and stuff on the back of there. At least they got the door and stuff back there.
Could be the senior citizen places.
Could be.
Retirement homes.
Have we looked into this? Have we looked into them? We need somebody to help us now. See, and I was aggressive enough to get CRC to say, listen, you guys got the same kind of thing. What can you all do? They did everything they can. Now, what the part that's not being said about CRC is that their workload increased after we made when the news hit that we had made an agreement with them. They started getting more demands. So now they coming from Lyons, Georgia, and Statesboro, and Swainsboro, and they're bringing more people back in here. See, so that they were at one point, now they at another point now. See, so we've got to do something, because what we're doing is not working.
Tabitha?
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point where I just would like to be able to reduce the risk on this particular issue. And I'm wondering if there is some criteria that the FTA has that will allow us to contract with medical transport companies that will, and we can use those to take all the doctor's appointments, and maybe use paratransit for the non-medical. And I think that the cost of it is just something that we're going to have to address and just deal with it for a limited amount of time. We should be able to at least finish out the year and get a plan in place for next year if we're able to contract with some private vendors.
Yep.
There are several private vendors that are medical approved.
If they have the capacity, right.
Yes.
Yep.
And, you know, it would cause us to have to hope to have two manifests, one for medical, one for non-medical. And I'm also wondering if we take advantage of sending text message. I know we call, but do we send a text message that says, I'm out front, if you don't come, I'm gonna leave? Because I think that's something that we need to start doing. Because we say that we call, and we have no document that says we told you we were gonna leave, or we, you know, a lot of times I can get a text when I can't get a call. You know, if the x-ray machines are on, or if it depends on where you are sometimes. So maybe the drivers need to start sending a text, I'm on the way, or I'm gonna be there. And then if they don't come, I mean, I know that's an extra task for the driver, but if we don't start documenting our efforts, we have no way of, we're just basically saying we did it. And while we're not saying that the driver didn't, I'm just saying if we text them, we can pull the text minutes, and we can, the text message, and we can put it in the file of the consumer. Oh, I'm calling them a consumer, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about work.
Actually, that's a good term.
Well, I mean,
You can say that.
Yeah.
I added the ability to my system last fall that we can do text messaging from our system, SMS messaging, so that we can add it to the consumer file. Because they'll say, you didn't call me, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. So now we text them, we called you, you ain't answer.
That's right. We text you.
You know, so in addition to registering on the call log, I could pull the phone log of the calls that day, but to just be able to send that text message and add that digital file to the consumer file, it's just better when you get questioned and you have to outline your activities, that you have something that you can say, here it is. So I'm wondering if that's something that we can do.
We can certainly explore that if the tablets can send text message via SMS. We can certainly look into that.
You got to be careful with your hands free law now, though, with this.
Well,
They have to be pulled
aren't
over.
they?
Yeah,
But when they're before they take off from the stop that they're going to, I'm leaving my stop, I'm going to be there with you. And another thing, you can do those standard text messaging that they can just pick which one they want to send. They don't have to type the whole thing. You can store those and just pick it and send that. I think we really need to
Be aggressive about it.
and take advantage of technology to document our efforts.
And so what I'm hearing is emergency procure, just be fiscally responsible, emergency procure services so that we can accommodate all of these trips.
Yes, I think there's like 4 or 5 medical transports in the area.
It depends on their capacity, right?
Yeah.
And if it goes beyond that, I would have to seek outside.
Yeah, but if you got to go outside to like Augusta, I think, send us an email. But if we can find somebody, Hilton Head,
25
Bluffton,
mile radius.
Liberty,
25 mile radius.
25. Yeah,
miles.
I'm not good with miles, I do cities. But, if you could do that, then I think that it's a viable option.
I think.
Plus, those drivers are trained.
I think we're all saying the same thing. We got to do it. We can't worry right now about what it costs. It's our reputation.
So do we need to make a motion on
Right.
that? No?
No, I think that we got the message.
Okay, and then can we try doing the text messaging, setting up something to send a message? Have the driver send it before they take off to come get the person? Or when they get there and they don't find the person? And did we add to the question, where are you standing, where there's multiple exits? Did we add that to the?
Didn't we talk about that, Chris? If it's in front entrance, side entrance,
There's a place for notes.
then we have those notes already. So we do have those notes that you just
Okay.
mentioned.
But are we
And
doing
looking
it?
at text,
Did we-
yes.
Yeah.
So we can look
Okay.
into the ability to send text messages as well.
Okay, but we did start from last week saying, I'm picking you up here, are you here or there?
Well,
Or-
we were already doing that. We were already designating front entrance, side entrance, you know, where exactly you're gonna be. That's not anything new.
We have one, I think Michael hasn't talked yet. Let's let you make one comment, and we'll close.
Yeah, it's gonna be quick. I worked in the provider side of this industry for years, and the first person who comes in late into the office throws off your entire day schedule. Same problem we're having with the paratransit. If the person is not where they're supposed to be, how long we wait, we have a time frame for that. And then in order to not ruin 100 other people's day, you must leave. It sounds cruel. I know these people are handicapped and have no other options. But every time you give them 5 minutes, they're going to take 10 the next time. And then it goes to 15 and 20. And we fought this. The first one is late, you stop by, we'll come back. It's up to you then to recontact us and do it or make a new appointment. That's how we had to do it.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's a matter of training.
The patients will never be trained, trust me.
No.
In 30 years of practice, they come in when they're damn well ready to walk in the door. And they don't care about your schedule, only theirs. And it's always going to be a problem, and we're in the middle of that problem. Because if we get there and they're 5 minutes late coming out, we get to the doctor's appointment, there's a little traffic, and they're 10 minutes late for the doctor's appointment, now the doctor's seated 2 other people. So now your pickup time is off. It's a cascading effect. And with a half-hour time frame, it cascades up to an hour and a half with these appointments. I understand, Dr. Williams, 3 hours is unacceptable to me. But if the patient was not there when we got there, and it wasn't our fault and we left, then it's still not our fault when we finally get back there to get them.
That wasn't the situation.
Well, then you didn't explain it.
The patient was there, but the person that we hired to go back and pick the patient up didn't go back and pick them up. They knocked off for the day.
Oh, well, you didn't tell
Didn't
us
tell
that.
us.
That's a whole.
Well, no, that's
It's
because
in some kind of document.
that's because Mike them didn't tell you that. I mean, I got it from there.
That specific instance, the CRC driver went back, dropped the vehicle off, and then went to another job.
Okay.
No, didn't tell anybody. That was that specific instance.
Yeah.
The 2 that were on TV, yes, we had to figure out a way to get back to them.
Well, I know the Barnes one, the guy was sitting at the emergency
Yes.
entrance all the way in the back of the restaurant, and they said he wasn't there.
See, because they didn't even know.
But every doctor's office goes through that same situation with late patients.
Maybe we need to give the driver the doctor's number so they can call the office and say, I'm out front.
If they can get through, try to call your doctor's office.
No, Dr. Williams is pretty.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but now you got an
Okay,
exception.
Bill,
Well,
let's finish these 2 people.
Yeah, I
waiting
just
up
had,
and,
I was gonna, so how many operators do we actually have in the pipeline now?
How many we have? We're training 10.
Okay.
We're getting 6 a day from CRC.
Uh-huh.
And how many manifests on our own?
There were about 26, 20 to 30 manifests a day.
And those our operators are 15.
15 from
bars.
Kent,
Yeah.
6 from CRC.
That's 21.
That's all.
15 now, or there's 15 in the pipeline?
No, there's 15 now.
Okay.
There's 10 in the pipeline.
So
There's
between
an additional 10 in the pipeline. And when they will exit that pipeline in stages or all at once, or?
All at once.
Okay, and they will exit that pipeline when?
4 to 6 week
Okay.
period time.
Okay. And in terms of the number of vans, are we getting enough vans from the CRC? Is it the operators, or we don't have the vans, or both?
Right now, it's
not enough operators or vans.
Yeah.
We get
Okay.
6, that's all we get.
Okay. All right, and we had vans sitting in Atlanta waiting to get released to us.
How many are ready right now today, Steve?
There's 5 already painted and striped, and there's 3 in the paint booth now.
Right, but they won't release them because of a group that verifies safety components
Right.
said that this lift, which is holding up 50 MARTA vehicles, which is holding up vehicles across the country, that this lift needed a gas, what was it?
There's a pressure sensor that come out in 2012 that's on the roll stop, which Rycon and no other lift besides Braun puts it on there. Their safety feature is in the seat belt. And so 2012, National Safety Committee said it's got to be on there. But they've been selling these lifts all the way up to our vehicles in 2016 are the same Rycon lifts from 10 years ago. It's just a heavier duty lift now. So you got 100,000 of these lifts running around the country now that's seatbelt safety versus the pressure sensor on the roll stop, and that's what they're fighting through now.
So where are we at with getting that component on it so we get the papers?
They are working on it right now. I'm waiting to hear from the National Safety Committee, Rycon, Alliance, and LaBelle.
So let me ask you, when did they promise to have the vehicles here?
Originally?
Originally, yeah. What was when we signed the contract and ordered the buses, the vans, all right? Didn't they have a date?
Back in May 15th.
They supposed to have been here since May. So now the extra cost that we are incurring, can't we pass some of that extra cost off to them because they didn't fulfill their contract?
Possibly, that's something for executive session discussion.
Okay. In
addition, they have a force majeure clause in the contract that may give them an out if there's a regulatory holdup.
Can we make note to talk about that in the executive session?
Make a note to talk about that in the executive session.
So can I just summarize
Yes.
where I think we are? So we have 10 folks in the pipeline that should be ready to be operators in 4 to 6 weeks. And that will be sufficient to staff our paratransit, is that correct?
No, just, we're gonna do another class after
Okay.
that, of another 10 to 12, and when
Okay.
that class graduates, then we will have sufficient manpower.
Okay. But if we get the vans released that are ready to come to us, will that give us sufficient hardware? Or sufficient
Vehicles?
Yeah, vehicles.
Well, right now we have, yes, it will. It will. Right now we have, what, 11 vehicles we're renting currently?
Okay.
Yeah, so when we get the vehicles, that'll help the vehicle situation, absolutely.
Okay.
But it won't solve it.
Oh, I agree. All right.
Okay, Tabitha, I was trying to cut this off before you got in line. So
Okay.
Chester was the last one that we had before we,
And my question is for Ty. If we send the text messages to their phones like Tabitha is saying, all right? Driver sends a text message to the servicee, okay? And then when all these complaints come up, can we share those text messages with the media?
I don't think so, but that's something I would have to research.
Yeah, okay.
There's a privacy issue there.
Yeah. Well, see, one of the things that people don't know is the inside that you call, you tried to get in touch, and you didn't get in touch. They didn't answer their phones. See, and because we are gracious and compassionate, we don't tell folks that, well, this is the situation, even though when they call the TV, TV show up and they want to know why.
Well,
we can't say to them, well, we called and couldn't get in touch.
There's a privacy issue there, and to the extent there's patient information there, you might have a HIPAA.
That's why I asked you that question.
In addition, though, I'll mention that one TV station in particular seems to report these things after they're over with and have been resolved.
Yeah.
Including where the station's already been notified that it was a problem with the passenger rather than anything that was done wrong by CAT.
Well,
and in this case, it was not CAT, it was CRC.
Yeah, that's not news.
Yeah, but I think that if you have the text message principle as a part of the policy, then when and we make the policy known, then people will be able to, the ones that are smart enough to pay attention, will say, well, they also sent a text message that's on the policy, and they can ask the person, did you get your text message? I just think that it is imperative that we have procedures in place that will confirm our efforts.
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking him. He said he had to look it up.
I'm not in procedure, I'm in proaction.
Since we're talking on this, suppose somebody doesn't have a cell phone.
I was about to raise that.
I was gonna say, I'm not in procedure, I'm proactive.
Do we require them to have a cell phone or the ability to receive text messages?
You can't do that.
You can't do that.
We have to communicate with them some kind of how.
Well, now, no, they have a program for disabled people to get a free cell phone.
Right.
But everybody may not buy into that program, so therefore you can't hold them liable.
Well, not everybody's
You
able
don't buy
to
it.
operate.
But the only way that can happen is that you already got the cell phone number anyway. That's their contact number.
Well, true. I mean, we
So if
only
they
talk about
give you the
ones that have
contact
a cell
number, you
phone.
shouldn't have a problem. Sending a text message.
If it's noted as
We're
a
not talking
cell.
about folks who don't have a cell phone, like the 70-year-old lady who lives in a house and all she got is a landline. Very few people got landlines now.
Okay, so I'm going to try to move us along because we're getting late and we've got quite a ways to go with the executive session.
Yeah.
So I do think, though, that we need to formally agree, and we should probably vote, that we're going to give Curtis the ability under emergency procurements to spend some additional money, which is probably not in our budget, on different solutions, as in medical transport, as in retirement homes, as in whatever we need, additional drivers if we have to lease them from an outside firm. I think it's important that we formally recognize that we've done this in case we forget later. Do we have any problems with that?
I'll make a motion if we need it.
Third, second?
Second.
What is the motion exactly?
That we give Curtis the authority to suspend his budget, repair transit, and do it as necessary to acquire drivers and vans quickly to get these people from A to B.
But I just asked if we had to do a motion for that. You said no.
I know I did, and I've
So
thought
we
about
were
it a second
discussing.
longer, and I think you were right. So I'm following your lead.
Well, I'm trying to catch up and keep up with y'all, because
Sorry,
y'all be
you're all right.
flip-flopping.
No, you were, Timothy, you were right.
You're all right.
No, it's okay. I don't want you to say, I'm just trying to figure out why we're doing that
wrong,
now.
and I thought
Okay,
afterwards,
I
I
got
think we
you.
should do this formally,
So I'm-
just so
okay.
that Curtis feels comfortable with doing what he's gonna have to do.
We had a point of discussion.
Any additional discussion?
All right, my only point to discussion on that is as long as it's brought forward to us, if any expenses that are, that do occur.
Friday afternoon update plan?
Yeah.
Well, then if you're gonna do that, then you gotta say if it's outside of the 25-mile radius. Because we asked for him to check within the 25-mile radius.
I don't want to put parameters on him. I'd rather let him do what he
No, we
wants
asked him to tell us, because if he goes outside that, it would increase the cost.
Yeah, but he might have to go outside that, so you want us to come back to us and answer the question?
No, I just want to know. That's it.
All right, Bill, you're good at this. Can you make a proposal?
My proposal would be that I would move that we give the executive director the authority to go forward and secure additional resources for the operation of our paratransit system.
That's your second.
But that don't change the
Motion on the floor.
So we're gonna rescind the motion.
I'm gonna rescind my
Just
motion.
restate it.
Yeah, that's all.
So we rescinded the motion and we're restating the motion.
Right.
Based on Bill Broker's recommendations.
Right.
And I still want the report to.
That's a,
I'm on the
so
board.
are we, if we're agreed to this,
I'm on the board.
can you get us on the board?
Is there a second to the
We
restatement?
don't have
Yeah,
this, we
yeah.
can't get this on the board because we don't have it as a action item.
Well, I tapped it and I'm up there.
Oh, to speak, I'm sorry.
Speak.
Yeah, to speak.
Yeah, the vote.
I thought we were talking to
No.
vote to give,
You ready now? For me
Go
to
ahead.
speak? My question is to Terry. Is the money there?
Yes, sir. Through the end of June, we are now in receipt of our June transit tax. We have one more grant that will roll over the next 30 days that will provide additional operating cash. And
So the
there's
money is there.
actually money in the bank to pay the vendors on time, and also in the annual paratransit budget to cover these additional costs. We've been running $300,000 below the original county paratransit budget. So there is approximately 200,000 in the budget that the county passed last year to cover all of these extra costs before the county's in the budget. So yes, sir.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure the money was there.
Yeah, but Curtis said he'd be frugal in his attempts to secure it.
I'm ready
So
to vote
I
now.
think we can.
Okay, so are we ready to vote?
And then also replenishes in July.
Frugal.
You got it for the vote.
Commissioner Odell, frugal with the balance of priority.
Yes.
So if somebody's very inexpensive and they can't help us till next month, that's not an option.
Right, that's what you,
Frugal with
that's
the-
what we said, right? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Let's not change nothing else. Put the thing up there.
I'll
Did
do
you
it
get
for
this up there to vote,
100,000 a week.
Beverly, or not?
We just.
Okay, we gotta raise our
We'll do a
hands,
hand
'cause we
vote.
can't, okay, so we have unanimously passed the approval for Curtis to do what he has to do, frugally. Okay, so, with that in mind, we are unfortunately on system development. Update, Patricia.
Okay, well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I will be brief, just to save time. There is a report in your board packet, but a couple of things I'd like to highlight or mention is that we were very successful in submitting those two grant applications that we talked with you all about earlier this month. One for the LONO and one for Georgia Department of Human Services. So both of those grants were submitted. The applications were submitted way ahead of deadlines. So I wanted to mention that. We are also making some customer improvements at some of the area bus stops. I had mentioned some of that to you before in committee meetings. Both the planning and marketing personnel, they began updating some of the transit information, some of the schedules at the bus stops around town. They began that project in April and May, and we are just about complete. We have maybe like 6 more signs to do. And then we will continue to refresh that information as needed. Let's see, we also held a public meeting on May 9th. Our outreach manager, Valerie, facilitated that meeting. We covered proposed budget, extended dot hours, system changes, new buses. Some of those topics were covered there. And within our marketing and communications office, I'm especially proud that we are being more proactive with the media. We sent out a total of 6 media advisories and news releases regarding various programs and services that are underway during the month of May. We received excellent press, which is also in your board packet. And in addition, we held that special event regarding the new buses. And then just last week, we participated in a joint news conference with the City of Savannah. And that concludes my report on this. There are questions.
I have a question. I didn't mean to say that.
Queue up, Beverly.
I did not mean to say that out loud. Where are we with the new phone system? Is that a part of this, the implementation for the paratransit, the phone system with the new software and the data collection? Is that a part of systems, or is that
No,
something else?
It's not. Not
What
a part of system development.
Part of
Y'all, we gotta do something with these names. What is systems?
Development.
The system itself, CAT, the development of CAT moving forward.
It's planning
The
activities.
phone system,
Where's that? What's that on?
if it's related to paratransit, it falls under service delivery, which is Mr. Brown.
So that's not systems. That's not a
No.
system. Okay.
So communication is not under systems?
Yes, that is.
So-
Communications in
Communication.
general, communications with social media, things like that.
There's two different deals.
Between
Communication.
drivers and dispatchers, if that's what you're talking about, that's operations.
So, but aren't we implementing a new phone system and stuff? Did we hear about that today?
No, ma'am.
No.
is automated passenger counter sensors.
Right,
for our
but aren't we doing something with the phone system? We talked about the call center.
We talked about that they're sending out notifications on pickup times, confirmations through their phone.
And you've added people to it.
We've added people tracking ETAs and the call volume, but we haven't changed the phone system.
Are you referring to what was in the press release regarding the paratransit?
No, I'm pretty sure at some point, if I gotta find it, I can find it. We talked about how we were going to track the calls, the call center, tracking them. Right now, it's being done on an Excel spreadsheet.
I recall a committee meeting discussion, and that would be in service delivery.
That would be part of it.
Mike is responsible for service delivery.
That's why we don't know what
So-
you're talking about.
so-
Yeah, that's why we don't have.
Okay.
So y'all did it in committee and we don't know what y'all talking about.
We all, okay, I'm done. Okay.
Well, Mike.
Okay,
Just
it's
give
not a
Mike.
system. I don't.
Chester, that's our.
Any other questions for Patricia?
He didn't tell us nothing about that.
So Terry, then, I think you're up with financial.
Very briefly, the financial report through the end of May is in your package. We are on budget for May and also for the projection. We should hit our operating target and be better than budget for about $700,000 before we do our annual adjustments for retirement benefits and property tax receivable. I don't foresee any issues at the end of June that will flip us upside down. So through 11 months, we're pretty much on target with the budget. And I'll answer any questions anyone may have.
Appreciate it.
Are we on the speaker now or are we
We're
done?
good.
We up there? We
Come
not.
on from last time.
Oh, I still got a question.
What system delivery?
No.
Finance.
Can y'all take that down?
I have a question on this one right here, finance, operating fund.
But I'm
Okay,
taking.
can we bring,
So do I take me off and take me back
No,
again?
you're back on.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. The AT&T connectivity, is that for the fare boxes, for wireless?
AT&T does our system phone service, but also runs SIM cards through our CAD ABL, our GPS system on the buses. So the short answer is no, and the long answer is it's for our interest system.
The interest, okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Winchester?
How much, is there monies for starting the reserve?
At 6:30, we should have cash available outside of what we need to pay of operating cash to set up a $450,000 reserve.
Okay.
So that's about 300 more than the target of 150. The plan is to reach out to the smaller banks and talk to them about their collateral requirements and at least open an account with one bank up to their FDIC limit. The rest of the reserve, both at the end of June and through the end of July, will be deposited with the existing Georgia Fund investment account.
So that's next week or that's Friday?
It will all roll by the time we close the books and cover this Friday's payroll.
Right.
So I will bring back to the board in July the administrative paperwork we need to execute a new bank account and also move the reserve into the Georgia Fund investment account that we have right now.
Okay. You haven't had any conversations with the small banks yet?
Not yet, because we didn't have the cash until June 15th, and we had to wait until all of our payroll costs were covered, which will be next Wednesday, to know what kind of cash we have to offer a bank for an investment instrument.
So the only minority bank in this county is on your list?
I've still got the contact that I received from the board for Carver. Yes, sir.
Just make sure you do.
Yep, I do.
Any other questions for Terry?
Thank you, Terry.